Clarksville City Council is now called to order. Minister Ken Brand, Associate Minister of In Christ Ministries Church, will serve as our chaplain of the day. The Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Councilperson Stacy Streetman. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite you to stand if you wish. Minister Brand.
Let us pray. Father God, we come this evening humbly before your throne of grace. Lord, we ask that you put a hedge of protection around this building, around these council members, around our city. Lord, we just lift everyone here tonight up to you. Lord, we ask that you allow your Holy Spirit to dwell in this meeting, in the hearts, in the minds of these civic leaders. Lord, we ask that you protect this meeting and protect our city. Lord God, we ask all of these things in the most holy and precious name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members, please register your attendance. Madam Clerk, take the roll.
All members are present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item on our agenda is Planning Commission report. Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. We have 4 items on our agenda tonight. Madam Clerk, will you please read the ordinances?
Ordinance 67, 2023-24, first reading, zoning case Z67, 2023, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Donald Webb for zone change on 2 parcels fronting on the north frontage of Britton Springs Road, 820 plus or minus feet west of the Fort Campbell Boulevard and Britton Springs Road intersection, from R4 multiple family residential district to R6 single family residential district. Ordinance 68, 2023-24, first reading, zoning case number Z70, 2023, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of PB&J, Bryce Powers agent, for zone change on property fronting on Manning Heights at the northeast corner of the Riverside Drive and Cumberland Drive intersection, from R1 single family residential district to PUD planned unit development residential district. Ordinance 69, 2023-24, first reading, zoning case number Z02, 2024, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Sidney B. Hedrick for zone change on a parcel of land located south of the Swift Drive and Ridgecrest Drive intersection, from O1 Office District to R3 3-family residential district. Ordinance 70, 2023-24, first reading, zoning case number Z01-2024, an ordinance amending the city zoning ordinance of the city of Clarksville as it pertains to the RM1 zoning classification.
Councilperson Streetman.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor, I move we go into public hearing.
Second. Motion been made and properly seconded to revert to public hearing. Without objection, we're now in public hearing. First item on our public hearing list is Ordinance 67, 2023-24, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Donald Webb. Is there anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of Ordinance 67? Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak against Ordinance 67? Next item is Ordinance 68, 2023-24, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of PB&J Bryce Powers, agent. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of Ordinance 68? Mr. Powers, give us your name. You have 5 minutes.
Yes, good evening. Bryce Powers, 46 Union Street. As you guys have seen in the project documents, this project is on a vacant property that we hope will become an anchor to the redevelopment of the southern end of Riverside Drive. It consists of a 5-story apartment building with a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units that provide great views of the marina, Liberty Park, Cumberland River corridor, and with a little extra effort. It can be walkable to downtown, but it's also near public transit as well. The design provides for some amenities that we really have targeted towards our anticipated demographic of young professionals and in workforce housing folks. Those include open green space for exercise and relaxation, a fire pit and common area for informal gatherings, a pavilion for more organized gatherings, and a pet exercise area where pet owners can not only offer their pets outdoor activities, but socialize with other pet owners as well. There are a few infrastructure improvements that this project is proposing as part of the plan. The first is improving some traffic flow as the intersection of Edge Hill Drive hits Riverside Drive. We have realigned that to move it further away from Riverside, therefore providing a little more stacking room for the exiting. Additionally, there's pedestrian connectivity, from the project site all the way down to the existing sidewalks on Riverside Drive. We are widening a portion of Edge Hill Drive on our property for the length of our frontage on Edge Hill. And recently, and I think possibly the street department may address this, there's going to be a widening of Manning Heights from 16 feet to 18 feet on out to Cumberland Drive. That was recently clarified. I think, again, the street department may address that. And none of these improvements will affect any property owner's property. There's been some mention of taking of land. I just want to clarify there is no taking of land. All this is well within existing right-of-ways or our property. The site design also provides for an additional 60 foot of sloped buffer from the nearest resident to the east. In that buffer, again, it's been talked about, it might be a steep drop off or something like that. It's actually a 3-to-1 slope, which is a kind of a mowable slope, considered a mowable slope. Our intent is to heavily plant that and let it be a kind of an urban wildlife habitat area. Overall, we feel like this is an attractive project that will provide a much-needed workforce housing in the core of Clarksville and within a designated opportunity zone, which has been applied to this area. And we feel like it'll bring new life to the property as well as the surrounding area. And as I mentioned before, anchor the redevelopment of the southern end of Riverside Drive. Also like to say this does lie outside the TIF boundary, so again, there's no public money as part of this project. This is not in the TIF district as of now. And I know this is a little bit different of an application because it's got a conditional approval. I know most of the time you guys don't see conditional zoning, but this is unique in that we have some TDOT right-of-way that we must acquire to make the project work. We did not want to obtain TDOT right-of-way abandonment and not have a plan in place to address how Manning Heights gets dealt with without this plan in place. So we feel like the PUD application has to go first. If you guys ultimately approve this, we will then have to go to TDOT, acquire the right-of-way. If that fails, the rezoning reverts back to the R1 that it is today. So there's no risk of having zoning that doesn't work because the right-of-way is not obtained. So I just want you to understand the reason, the direction, the sequencing we're doing is for that purpose. And I know there's been several council members, I watched the informal last week, that have maybe addressed the desire to have a traffic assessment. We are willing to do that if you guys see fit to defer us tonight, to have that traffic study done, bring it back before you again with those findings, and have that, of course, reviewed by the street department as well. So happy to answer any questions you guys might have.
Thank you, Mr. Powers. We do have questions. Councilperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mayor. I see you are the agent for the applicants, PB&J. Can you tell who owns PB&J?
It's three local guys. You'll hear from one here in a second. We're all three local Clarksvillians. I'm the B in the,
Okay.
in the PB&J. So Paul Ellis, Bryce Bowers, Jason Daugherty.
Okay, awesome. What type of business entity is PB&J?
Well, we all own businesses in Clarksville. This is just an investment partnership that we have put together for this project.
Okay, so does PB&J like own any other businesses, or is it owned by another business entity?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Councilperson Shekinah, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Bryce, for that presentation. On Manning Height Drive, you said that it's going to be widened, all right? That's going to be the primary entrance and exit to this
No, sir.
proposed development?
No, sir. That's a good question. I should have touched on that. Through our discussions with the street department, there will be signs put up I wish we had the map on the screen, but as it exits our parking lot and would head down Manning Heights, it'll say no through traffic. Through discussions, street department and fire department, they wanted 18 feet, fire department, 18 feet, because they see that as their primary route to serve this with a fire truck coming from Station 1. So the 18 feet is to get the fire truck the right width they need, but, you know, the intent is to have all our traffic go out Edge Hill through Riverside Drive,
Okay.
to Riverside Drive.
And the next question on the, I know you're gonna do 72 units, or that's what you're proposing. Historical estimates is 194. The parking spaces, how many parking spaces are you allocating? I think it's 120 or something.
125 or 8, something like that. We feel with the one-bedroom units that we've got a reasonable amount of parking spaces to address, again, the demographic we're targeting. We don't see a family, you know, with 3 cars coming into this. It's just not who I think will rent here. So we do, of course, the kiss of death on any project is if you don't have no parking, people aren't going to come. So obviously, we're very aware of that, but feel like we're adequately served.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to touch a little bit on, you mentioned opportunity zones, and I honestly had to look and see what that was. I reached out to the RPC and EDC. And so what I'm following is that it's an economic development tool that allows people to invest in distressed areas. And it will provide a tax benefit for your organization, right? So there will be a tax deferment or a tax benefit that goes along with this development, right?
Sure, at the
From
federal
the federal,
level.
at the
Right.
federal
Yes,
level.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But no, I should have clarified, not local public money, not in this.
Well, we all pay federal taxes, but yeah, I know what you mean. Thank you.
Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Powers, you talked about the abandonment process with TDOT doing that after the fact. I mean, and understanding it's not truly conditional zoning, although there is a condition in there. However, even taking that a step further, if that wasn't approved, it's not only just on our end with that condition being in there, that would completely change your plan here. And of course, with planned unit development, we see what we're going to get as the essential final product. That would be changing far more than the percentage allowed.
Oh, right. So you're saying if the TDOT abandonment is not able to be obtained.
Am I correct
right,
in my assessment of
right,
that?
we would either say, hey, put us back to R1, or here, let me bring you a new plan that does work without that condition involved.
Like I said, I thought from what I looked at, it looked like it would change it, be well outside the bounds of the allowable amount to change, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Powers, did I hear you say something about deferring tonight?
It was talked about, at the executive session Thursday that you might want a traffic study. I don't really want to be deferred, but I would not object to it if a council person wants to do that and instruct me to get a traffic study.
Okay, all right, thank you. No other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of ordinance 68? If you would give us your name, you have 5 minutes.
I'm Paul Ellis. I'm the P in PB&J. And I've lived and worked in Clarksville for 30 years. My address is 324 Franklin Street. I'm a CPA, local CPA, and I can address any qualifying opportunity zone questions, especially at the federal level, if anybody has a question. But I just wanted you guys to see that we're local investors. I invest in downtown properties. I own a business in downtown Clarksville. A big fan of downtown Clarksville, and this is where I'm going to retire. So we're not here to flip any properties or anything like this. This is a long-term investment in our community. Qualifying opportunity zones, they incentivize business development in the zone. They incentivize housing developments, which this would be. They incentivize proximity to entrepreneurial centers, technology transfer offices, colleges and universities, and near retail, commercial, tourism development opportunities. And when you look at downtown Clarksville with Liberty Park, the Riverwalk, the Greenway, well, there's soon to be a attached Greenway. I bet you I've put 5,000 miles on those trails. So I really enjoy that. The young people that work for me, several have graduated from Austin P. This is built for their interest. They want to live and work in downtown Clarksville. They want to be close to these amenities. And I just think this would be a great opportunity for them. I personally go through that intersection twice a day, 5 to 6 days a week. So I'm very, I think it's a great project for Clarksville. I think it's a great project for our young people. And I think it's a great project for a qualifying opportunity zone. So If anybody has questions on the federal tax side of this, I'm happy to answer those or anything else that you would.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ellis. We do have questions. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yes, so part of doing a PUD is supposed to be giving back to the community. That's why you get the increased density. So fixing the road would have been required whether I did R4, whatever I did in that community, you would have had to fix the road. So I don't see a big piece of this PUD, anything giving back to the community. For me, making it a way to get from this area over to the park, because you can say there's green space, but nobody's getting to that green space unless they get in their car right now. So what is the amount of potential money in the opportunity from the federal dollars?
So I'm going to answer the first question as far as what opportunities or benefits people have. I think anytime you increase the amount of units available for housing, it makes housing affordable. And I have 22-year-olds that have literally just graduated from Austin P, and they're getting into their first apartments. We look at this as an urban development. So if you would equate this to Chattanooga near their Riverwalk, you're not going to have a whole lot of green space with urban development. If you equated this to New York City, this would be 2 blocks away from Central Park. But those amenities and being the proximity to those, that's the access these young urban dwellers want to be. They want to go to concerts at the Impact. They're going to want to watch Austin P play basketball at the Impact. They want to maybe go to the TPAC once it's open, or our Performing Arts Center. That's the amenities that we envision. But obviously we do have green space and behind the facility. So if you have children and you want to see them play in that park, or you want them back there, you'll be able to see them from your window. So as far as the federal tax, the qualifying opportunity zone was created in the 2016 tax code, and it was created to help low-income tracts, areas that needed social economic boosts. And there's 176 of these tracts in the state of Tennessee. Local elected officials were provided feedback to the state and to the federal government to create these areas, which the Riverside corridor is. It incentivizes investors. There's no upfront tax breaks, none. If you hold this property for 10 years, then you can sell it with stepped-up basis, which would lower your capital gains. So and the only way you get that tax break is to own this for 10 years in an area that has not developed the way that the community would like it to develop. So that's your tax break. It's 10 years in arrears, nothing up front.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak against Ordinance 68? If you would give us your name, and you have 5 minutes.
I'm Charlotte Nelms. I live at 1056 Manning Heights. We are opposed to the rezoning of this case from R1 to PUD. Most all of the concerns with this property are associated with the density of the occupancy of the proposed building and the issues arising from that density. This property is located at the heaviest traveled intersections of the city with over 40,000 vehicles daily. It is not a convenient location for linkage and accessibility to places a large group of tenants will want to travel. It is currently accessible by the single-lane, one-way road of Manning Heights paralleling Cumberland Drive and the narrow single-lane road of Edge Hill Drive. Edge Hill Drive is prone to erosion and so narrow, vehicles have been known to fall into the drainage ditch trying to pass. To access various directions from the PUD via the intersection of Riverside Drive and Cumberland, you must travel up this narrow road of Edge Hill and turn on Irving to connect back up to Cumberland. And then if you want to exit the PUD, where they want to put their exit, and go left on Riverside by the Dairy Queen, it's almost impossible during peak travel times. Visibility of oncoming traffic and turn lane traffic is potentially dangerous. Backed up traffic on Riverside occurs daily. Riverside is very accident prone. The addition of 126 vehicles generated from this high-density property will add to the already congested traffic of Riverside and Cumberland. And at peak times, traffic times, vehicles use Manning Heights as an alternate route to escape the congestion on Cumberland. With Manning Heights emptying into the PUD parking lot, it creates safety concerns for parked vehicles backing up, unloading, and loading, and trying to exit while incoming escape traffic enters to pass through. In addition, truck traffic from delivery of household goods, food, parcels, garbage pickup will add to the congestion in the parking lot. Also, safety concerns for pedestrian and any children that must walk from the PUD in the one-lane roads of Manning Heights and Edge Hill Drive, which do not have sidewalks, to Cumberland Drive for school pickup and drop-off. This zone change from low intensity of a parcel, which once housed 2 residential homes, to 72 units is extreme density that is not compatible with the residential neighborhood. In the Land Use Study Update for Clarksville, Montgomery County, 2020, page 10, under the title, Residential Development Goals, it states, to keep development density levels similar through the use of compatible zoning districts. The proposed zoning change to PUD is the exact opposite of this current R1 zoning designation. Between the current R1 zone and the PUD zone are 9 residential zoning categories. All 9 reflect lower density levels and are more in line with the residential development goals of keeping development levels similar through the use of compatible zoning districts. All these concerns and issues are about the density, are density driven. And we really would like to urge you to not rezone this property from R1 to PUD. Keep our community a community. I know all my neighbors, and they are good neighbors, and we want to beautify our street. Keep it the way it is now. Add a few more beautiful homes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelms. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak against Ordinance 68? Ladies and gentlemen, let's maintain order, please. If you'll give us your name, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Dawn Miller, and I live at 1040 Manning Heights. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time that has been committed to listening to us by phone, by reading all our emails, and helping us in addressing our concerns for this case. While reading the land use update narrative, I saw the saying in the prologue, few feelings are as distressing as the one experienced by having an incompatible land use move too close to that small area of the earth's surface that a person calls home. What a true statement. It can be very difficult when you find your biggest investment in life, that perfect area, comfort and well-being as you know it, it can all change in a matter of minutes. We truly understand changes that sometimes require sacrifices for the better of the whole community. We understand that Cumberland Drive, which is the front of my property, is in future plans for expansion. If that expansion will help to keep residents in this area from having to hear that horrific sound that you hear of the brakes squealing and the vehicles crashing, I will gladly support that because that is a definite benefit to this community. The rezoning of these properties from an R1 to a PUD, we are not in agreement. That is truly benefit to this community. Clarksville, Tennessee Zoning Ordinance 3.3.13, titled Planned Unit Development District, paints the picture of what is expected. PUDs, where I am from, offer an abundance of amenities in close proximity, safe for pedestrian travel. Examples of this is downtown, where the Civic Center was. There was live entertainment, the local coffee shop, restaurants, and farmers markets. And a lot of people worked in that area, and they could get to it by foot safely. The open spaces were friendly for families with barbecues, picnic areas, sand areas for kids to play in. That included more than a swing set. The green areas were large enough for tossing a football and disc golf. They owned their residents in that PUD, and they were a proud community. To me, this PUD that's being proposed is just another apartment complex. As presented before this council, this PUD has checked all the boxes for the minimum requirements for a PUD rezone. We, the people, have voiced our concerns. Something that hasn't been stated is in order for PB&J to acquire the additional land needed to proceed with this development, the city of Clarksville will also have to make a plea to TDOT during the application process. It has been mentioned to me that this road of Manning Heights will be extended 24 feet wide. And they have mentioned that it would be all of Manning Heights, and it would possibly be all of Edge Hill as well, because it is very unsafe to travel on. So, if the street department determines that these two roads must be widened the full length of the roadway, and not just at the entrance or exit of the PUD, and if the engineering department determines in order to accommodate that construction, property will need to be acquired from the current homeowners by eminent domain. The power poles along Edge Hill will also have to be relocated. This possible rezone has captured a lot of the citizens of Clarksville attention by being on public display. This development plan will make a very bold public statement in many ways and centered right in everyone's view, unlike a lot of new housing developments. From talking to the public, the additional petitions that I have, and reading comments posted on Clarksville chat, they also oppose this PUD based on location, traffic, and their school suffering. Your vote tonight is very important because it will help to set a precedent for future PUDs coming before you. If you vote yes, you are stating that you believe that this aligns within your zoning ordinance vision statement and that the community will benefit from it enough to support the application for TDOT and support for the street department to use eminent domain if needed. The people here and all the opposing community members ask for your support in voting no. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Our code allows for rebuttal, allows for one person who is in favor of ordinance 68. If you wish to offer rebuttal for what you heard, you're welcome to come forward. We can have one person and you get 3 minutes. Seeing none, we are now ready for item C, ordinance 69, 2023-24, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Sidney B. Hedrick. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak in favor of ordinance 69? Mr. Hedrick, if you give us your name, you have 5 minutes.
Sidney B. Hedrick. Y'all don't usually use my whole name.
Okay.
I didn't fill that one out. Mr. Wynn filled that out for me. I'm trying to sell this property to Hunter Wynn. And so I've got 3 points to make, but lots of words in between those points. I was going to talk a little bit about the history of the origin of this property. It's a 2-acre piece of property that's at the end of Swift Drive off of Cumberland. It was, some people, if you're from Clarksville, some of y'all might be, it's known as the Miller Clubhouse. And so I did a little title search on it today and went back all the way back to 1946, which is before the Millers actually owned it. It was the Meachams who owned it. It's a name, Austin P. name over there, Meacham Hall, I think. But on the property sat what they called in the deed the Good Time House. Okay, and then when the Millers had it, the Millers, they developed the Forest Park subdivision and the Mayfair subdivision, which are the subdivisions that this is adjacent to. And but the Millers retained that property, and it became known as the Miller Clubhouse. But what I was told today by Jack Rudolph, it was certainly the Good Time House. He said they had lots of fun out there. They would have barbecues and all kinds of things. So at some point, this is my next point, at some point in probably 1995 or so, it looked as though the property was zoned to O1, which was office and professional. And at that time, O1 would have allowed for things like a convalescent home, maybe even apartments or condominiums, things of that nature. It was owned by a church at that time, and I believe they might have used it for such, like a convalescent home. I know my mother-in-law, when they moved here in 1991, I'm pretty sure she worked there and helped take care of people before she went to work at Clarksville High School as a home economics teacher. So it, being that it's kind of in the end of a neighborhood, it's adjacent to it, but not a part of it. O1 seems an odd selection, but at the time, zoning was 20 years old roughly in 1995, and it was just what they felt like at the RPC was the most appropriate zoning for their use at that time. So we've come in and last year, Mr. Tyndall and I, we sat down and with other folks like me who do little projects all around town, and we talked about modification to the R3 zoning. And in that, we lowered it so that it would become appropriate for people to come in and take existing R3 lots and make them smaller, but to sort of prevent everybody from coming in and asking for R6 every time, because it seemed like that got a little bit old hat. So at the time when I sat down with Mr. Tyndall, I didn't really understand that it was really just for, that modification was more for the existing R3 lots in the county and city and county, I guess, which were, he says there are about 3,200 of them. So when Mr. Hunter asked me if, hey, I'd like to buy this, let's do R6, I said I wouldn't do R6. Why don't we try R3? Because they recently modified that. Now recently, after talking to, well, number one, after going through the RPC and then listening to some of the neighbors talk and then now talking to Mr. Tyndall again, it seems as though the R3 zoning may not have been the most appropriate selection here. So the R2A zoning is what Mr. Tyndall tells me is what is considered the suburban infill. And I think this property would definitely qualify for infill. It's never been a residential property. It's adjacent to a residential property. It's also adjacent to multifamily properties and commercially zoned properties. So the current zoning in the neighborhood is R2. This is on the edge, touching multifamily and commercial. So while I'm here for R3, I guess what I'm going to say is conflict resolution is the best way to work things out, and I'd like to negotiate. And if it's available, I'd like maybe be deferred and sent back to the RPC, but to ask to go to R2A.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hedrick? Councilperson Allen, you're recognized.
I just want to know if it goes to R2A, if we refer it back and it goes to R2A, do you know how many units it would be?
I'm not an engineer, but I love to play on my little computer thing.
Oh, okay.
So I think probably 8, maybe 9.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions for Mr. Hedrick? Councilperson Holloman, you're recognized.
So, how many units do you think you can get if it was R2
R2,
and match the rest of the neighborhood?
I didn't do a drawing for R2.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hedrick, for Sidney B. Hedrick? Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Hendricks. For
Yes,
what
ma'am.
you just did. I appreciate that. I heard something that I like you said about the R6. Thank you. Now, these are going to be single-family homes, right?
Oh, yes, ma'am, of course.
That's okay. Great. I want to make sure I heard you. You said so much, and I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. Okay?
Yeah, pass these out for me, Chuck, please, if you don't mind.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can hand one of those to everybody. They're all a little bit different. And
Excuse me,
what this is,
what do we got here?
well, I was going to tell you, what this is a small little packet. Yeah, just hand them down. Just give everybody one.
Wait a minute, that's the chair's
Oh,
prerogative.
I got to give it to him?
We need to make sure they're all the same.
Oh, it's just pictures. It's so they all represent the same example.
Do you have a copy for the clerk or?
Hand the clerk one.
You gotta have.
You do? Okay, all right. Well, can you just hand them, let them look at it? Okay, that's fine.
Tell
Well,
us
what
what
it
it
is.
is.
So I was the first individual to do the R6 in town, and I have one example of that. It's a picture of the vacant lot that was sitting there on Greenwood Avenue, and then a picture of the 3 houses I built. And then there's several others, photos of the dilapidated homes that were removed and the new homes that were placed back in it. It's just an example of what infill is doing for us here in the suburban and urban areas of town, is all it really is. It's just helping us. It shows you that building these homes when infill is allowed as necessary, that it just beautifies the area, not as well as providing homes and things like that for the.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
I just wanted to follow up. I believe that Mr. Tyndall sent out an email and he indicated that R2 would do 8 units and R2A would be 10 units, but there is concern for the topographic, and that's why that's probably probably where you got 8 because they think that the property will not allow that many.
Definitely. It's pretty steep, especially on the far left-hand end, as it goes up to what's called Summit Drive, but it doesn't even exist anymore. It's just Ridgecrest as it rolls back around. It's really steep on that end. You're talking about R6 or R2A would be a 40-foot lot, but the front of that lot would probably have to be about 160 feet. So, I mean, that's, more than 3 times the width of what it would be required just to make that lot work.
Okay, Councilperson Holloman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So I disagree with the R3 and I disagree with the R2A. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to amend this to send it back to the RPC with recommendation of R2 zoning. And just want to be upfront and out in the air. Okay?
I would disagree with your ability to do that. So,
Yeah. Thanks.
Mr. Baker, stand by. Councilperson Shekinah, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Sid,
Yes, sir.
Staff recommended disapproval. Did the commission, the RPC, did they recommend disapproval as well?
no, sir, they
They
approved it.
recommended approval?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hedrick, I think if I'm correct, and I'm basing this off of, it was either in the informal meeting or in the formal meeting, Mr. Tyndall had stated that they had hoped or talked with you guys about bringing this to originally in at R2A.
Well, I wasn't there when Mr. Tyndall spoke with Mr. Wynn.
Okay,
About a year ago, you guys modified R2A from a 50-foot lot to a 40-foot lot. And I've had this property since 2020, and I've been trying to figure out what could I do with it, because I wasn't necessarily thinking about selling it. And so I know Mr. Tyndall and I at one time talked about that, but I have no idea what he and Mr. Wynn talked about.
but the staff, or at least Mr. Tyndall, is comfortable with this being, based on the conversation that you had, is comfortable with this being sent back as an R2A.
Yes, ma'am. He told me, we talked to him on the phone, that he felt like R2A, like I said, he described it as a suburban infill zoning, and he felt like this property was a good qualifier for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll take one zoning classification at a time. It's before us as an R3.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
any other questions for Mr. Hedrick? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Hedrick.
Thank you.
Sidney B. Hedrick. All right, anyone else in the audience wish to speak in favor of Ordinance 69? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against Ordinance 69? If you would, give us your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Hello, my name is John McConnell. I live at 703 Ridgecrest Drive, directly across from this parcel of land being considered for rezoning. I'm here on behalf of many residents of this neighborhood who have asked me to speak on their behalf. This is a working-class neighborhood, many of whom are elderly, disabled, or have children. In this neighborhood, there's also a large proportion of citizens of color who have historically been disenfranchised, not necessarily saying here, but in general. We would like to request your consideration in voting against the rezoning of this parcel to R3 or R2A based on the following facts. Number one, the staff recommended disapproval due to the inconsistency with the city's land use plan. In the land use plan, it states, and I quote, that areas with excessive slope, 15%, should remain unimproved or be developed only under the provisions of the lowest density categories, given their physical constraints. The average slope on this parcel is just over 14%, meaning there are slopes both below and above that average. The area most sloped in this parcel is closest to Ridgecrest Drive. Adding impervious surfaces like foundations and driveways will only add to the drainage issues, erosion, and runoff that we already see along this road. In the land use plan, it also states, and I quote, that residential development must add sidewalks and walkways along with adequate roadways to better handle present and projected traffic flows to allow for timely and safe ingress and egress from all developments. There are no sidewalks or roadways or room for those in this neighborhood. The increased congestion will only add to the risk faced by pedestrians, children, and pets. I ask you, how are the children going to walk around in this neighborhood? The ones who move in, the 9 or the 14 or the 8, where will they play? Where are they going to stand to wait for the bus in the morning at 6:30 when it's still dark and there's increased traffic in that area? Moreover, sightlines entering both Ridgecrest and Swift Drives just prior to entering the road adjacent to this parcel of land are severely limited due both to the topography and the roadside parking of vehicles. Voting to approve this rezoning is effectively counter to much of what is presented in the city's adopted land use plan. The city has spent taxpayer money to commission experts to study and publish the land use and city growth plans. If we act against what is indicated in those studies, then why do we have those to begin with? You're the last stop between the business interests of a few and the safety of many. Every parcel along the access roads along this parcel are zoned R2. So I'm talking about what's linked to the parcel. The applicant's reason for the request is to better align the property with the surrounding area. Then in order to do so, why not zone R2? Not R2A, not R3, and match the density, the low density of the entire neighborhood along these linked roads. Residents of Swift Ridgecrest neighborhood are not against pro-development. However, we are against pro-development or negotiating a business deal when it involves anti-safety and future problems for the city like drainage and runoff. Again, we ask, why not follow what is provided in the city's land use and growth plans and match the rest of the neighborhood with lower density R2, not R2A, not R3. Thank you. We have hope and trust that the great city of Clarksville will honor our concerns and continue to prioritize the health, safety, and well-being of our citizens. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. Any questions for Mr. McConnell? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak against Ordinance 69? If you would give us your name, and you have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Donna Brew Radcliffe, and I've lived at 1018 Ridgecrest Drive for 38 years. I've taught elementary and middle school in Clarksville, Montgomery County 36 of those years, 12 of those years teaching 5th and 8th through 8th graders. Concerning this zoning, the increased amount of traffic congestion and children riding bikes, skateboards, and other things onto extremely sloping driveways is hazardous to the children and the drivers, and one puts all of our current and future residents at risk, especially irresponsible children and teens. Since there's absolutely no way to widen Swift Drive, it would be impossible to add sidewalks. Therefore, all activities such as bike or skateboard riding, waiting for a school bus or city bus, jogging, walking pets, or walking with friends is always done out in the roadway. This is especially dangerous since there is a blind corner right there where Swift Drive and Ridgecrest Drive meet. I cannot imagine 9 to 14 skinny driveways built on steep slopes emptying into cars and people's right where the blind corner is located. Since all the driveways currently end at the end of Swift Drive, they're short and the renters must park their cars on the street in front of their homes. With children running between the cars and people opening car doors, this basically makes this narrow road a one-lane road. Adding the congestion of 18 to 28 cars down these sloping driveways will further aggravate the road congestion, the drainage runoff issues, and safety problems. Imagine children thrilled with the thought of barreling down these driveways directly onto a street where drivers can't see around the corner onto a narrow road. This scenario would be fatal for children and unbelievably traumatic for the drivers. Parking should be required in the back of the homes to keep everyone safe. Residents of Swift and Ridgecrest Drive are not against pro-development, as John said. However, we oppose growth that might result in serious safety and environmental issues. It might also cause harmful future issues for the city trying to keep both the grates and the sewer lines unclogged and free of debris. So we ask, once again, why not match these new constructions with the rest of the neighborhood along Swift and Ridgecrest Drive and zone it R2 and have the driveways go straight onto Swift Drive? In conclusion, it's encouraging to see how caring each of you have been concerning the needs of our neighborhood. Thank you for taking the time to hear our concerns and for assisting us in this endeavor. And a special thanks goes out to Travis Holloman, our district councilman.
Thank you, Ms. Ratcliffe. Any questions for Ms. Ratcliffe? Seeing none, thank you. Our code allows for rebuttal, and one person can speak who is in favor of Ordinance 69 and offer rebuttal to anything they've heard. Does anyone wish to speak and offer rebuttal? One person, 3 minutes. Mr. Sidney B. Hedrick.
Yes, sir. Sidney B. Hedrick here. I just want to say that Mr. McConnell stated that the RPC disapproved R2A. That is not true. The staff disapproved R3, not R2A. So that was just, I think maybe he just spoke maybe accidentally. Also, wasn't aware that Mr. McConnell had a topographic survey of my property, knowing that it's 14 degrees in slope, and I'll be glad to trade him a copy of that for the parking of his trailer, which is set on the front of my lot for a couple of years. And then in terms of the traffic, you know, there's going to be traffic in a neighborhood. I did speak to one of the council members today. They asked me, are there two ways in and out of this neighborhood? And there are. Swift Drive, and then it also comes out off of Monroe out to Edmondson Ferry, which takes it out to 41A bypass. So, you know, I think that's adequate in there to handle any additional traffic of maybe, you know, 8 or 10 homes. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have time for one person who is against Ordinance 69 to offer what's called Sir rebuttal. If you wish to address the council, one person. Is that a ringtone, somebody's phone? Okay. That's okay. Mr. McConnell, if you would, you have 3 minutes.
First of all, I said that the staff recommended disapproval of the rezoning to R3. You could watch the video of the RPC meeting 2 weeks ago. Also, I do not own a trailer that's on his property. Again, there's a lot of units already along Swift and Ridgecrest Drive. People have to park on the street, down the street. They can't walk along the side of the street. They have to walk in the middle of the street because so many cars are parked along Swift Drive. And so we're just asking the council to kindly consider the safety of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McConnell. We're now ready for item D, Ordinance 70, 2023-24, an ordinance amending the city zoning ordinance of the city of Clarksville as it pertains to RM1 zoning classification. Anyone in the audience wish to speak in favor of Ordinance 70? Anyone in the audience wish to speak against Ordinance 70? Councilperson Streetman.
Mayor, I move we go back into regular session.
Motion been made and properly seconded to revert to regular session without objection. We are now back in regular session. Councilperson Streetman.
Ordinance 67, 2023-24, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Donald Webb for zone change on two parcels fronting on the north frontage of Britton Springs Road, 820 plus or minus feet west of the Fort Campbell Boulevard and Britton Springs Road intersection from R4 multiple family residential district to R6 single family residential district. Both the Regional Planning Commission and the staff recommended approval, and I forgot to say, as a reminder, all motions upon the advice of legal counsel shall be for approval. So I make a motion for approval of Ordinance 67, 2023-24.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of Ordinance 67. Any comment or question regarding Ordinance 67? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
12 yes, 1 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 67 passes first reading. Councilperson Streetman.
Ordinance 68, 2023-24, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of PB&J, Bryce Powers agent for zone change on property fronting on Manning Heights, at the northeast corner of the Riverside Drive and Cumberland Drive intersection from R1, single family residential district to PUD, Plan Unit Development Residential District. Both the Regional Planning Commission and the staff recommended approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 68. Before we get into questions and discussion by council, there's some clarifying information. David Smith, Director of our Street Department, if you would please come up. Without objection, we'll stand in recess momentarily to hear from Mr. Smith regarding some of the road widths and other issues. Mr. Smith?
Thank you. So just, you guys have seen the image, the overlay of the property. The boundary of the street department's comments for a 24-foot width on Manning Heights are within that footprint. The portion of the roadway, Manning Heights, as it extends to Cumberland Drive, developers agreed to widen that to 18-foot, adding roughly 2 foot of average asphalt across that portion. It would also permit at that width two-way traffic, whereas right now it is one-way traffic. Just a clarifying.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Smith? I have a list here. Councilperson McLaughlin, do you have a question for Mr. Smith?
Well, I didn't, but I do now.
All right, you are recognized.
Okay, so one of the speakers mentioned about the possibility of future eminent domain to widen all the way up Manning Heights and or Edge Hill. And I know that we discussed that last week, and I believe we were told that right now it's just going to be the property that is owned by PB&J. There's no future plans for the city to go after property for the widening is related to this. Is that correct?
Oh, that's correct. Couple points of clarification there. The city is not the applicant. So the applicant is the developer that's making the request of TDOT. And then ultimately, if there's any dedications to the city, those would come down the road. But TDOT has a very, very, very healthy right-of-way in that area that would accept the widening of the roadway without the need to acquire any private property.
And then would you please explain to the public what the process is for the city to acquire property for future widening?
Sure. So if it is, in fact, the city that acquires the property, the city council has an opportunity to vet and grants us permission to acquire, negotiate, and if necessary, pursue eminent domain where needed. We make an appraisal of the property. There are surveys of the properties. All of that is sent to the residents via a team that negotiates on our behalf. It's a third party. The parties either accept or reject that offer. There is, again, a threshold of negotiation that takes place. We close on the property. We acquire fee simple. And again, at the end of that process, whether it's done through an agreement with the property owner or through the court system, we make the necessary developments. But it is the most minor impact is always considered.
So to be clear, it's not part of this project. If that ever happens, it'd be a separate whole process away from this property.
It would.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Allen, did you have questions for Mr. Smith? No. Okay, I'll come back to you. Councilperson Holloman for Mr. Smith?
No, Mayor.
Okay, Councilperson Reynolds for Mr. Smith?
Yes, I would just like to clarify, who is paying for the widening of the road to support this project?
The developer.
The developer will pay for it.
Correct.
And so then it would have to be put in writing into the PUD.
That would be a question for Mr. Tyndall.
Right, because when we vote on a PUD, we're supposed to be voting on a completed document, not some loose hanging things that might happen. The PUD is the guarantee, that's one of the reasons they get the extra density and the other pieces is that we see a completed project before we vote on it. So if it's part of the PUD, then I think it will have to be deferred to be put into writing.
Well, it is part of the PUD that the improvements will extend. That's there. And then our notes and our comments, as well as the fire department's comments, already exist within the approved document. So there are improvements that extend all the way to Cumberland Drive. There is 24 foot of asphalt within the footprint that's under consideration that accommodates our needs. So those comments are true.
I'm not sure that they're strong enough. I would like to see them stronger, especially if we're gonna return it anyways.
Councilperson Marquis for Mr. Smith?
Yes.
You're recognized.
Mr. Smith, would you be able to explain a little bit on how the relocation of utilities work? That seems to also be a concern.
I think that'd be a question for those unique utilities.
Sorry?
That would be a question, I think, for those unique utilities being CDE and CGW.
It would be city, okay.
Depending on what the utility was.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Smith? Seeing none. Okay, Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, my friend. So with this project, the developer does not have to acquire any land from TDOT because you're saying that there's already enough land that they could use to develop what they're inquiring to develop.
No, ma'am, they would not need to acquire any land from the private sector. They wouldn't have to buy anything from those residential owners. TDOT has a very wide right-of-way that would have to be dedicated to the developer in this circumstance to accommodate the development.
But that has to be given to them, right? Or
Yes,
they
there's-
have to acquire it, right?
There's a process, excess land through the Tennessee Department of Transportation. They make application. I think they meet quarterly, maybe monthly. I'm not really sure about what that process looks like, but they make an application and that's ruled by
So have
by
they
that
made
body.
the application?
They have not, as I understand from what the applicant has stated, they don't want to make the application until they have an approval at this level.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Councilperson Streetman, you're on the list. Is this for Mr. Smith? Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir.
All right. Without objection, we're now back in regular session on ordinance 68. Councilperson Allen, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. I'd like to make a motion to refer this back to the RPC for a traffic impact assessment. Is that what it's called? I need a second.
Second.
Motion been made and, that was close, properly seconded to refer ordinance 68 back to the Regional Planning Commission with the requirement of a traffic assessment. Properly seconded. Any conversation about this? I've got some folks on the list. Councilperson Holloman on the motion to refer.
Yes.
You're recognized.
Point of
Oh,
order.
I'm sorry. You're recognized. Keep going. I'll come back to you, Councilperson Holloman.
So last week, I was one of the council members that really had a problem with the traffic of this particular PUD. Because once we see this and everything happens, it doesn't come back before us again. So we want to make sure we're doing our due diligence. So I would ask for my fellow council members to vote for for us to send this back, defer it back for a traffic assessment. Thank you.
Councilperson Holloman, now you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've gotten a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails. I've talked to a lot of the audience members that we have. I don't think that we should defer it, and I don't think we need a traffic assessment. I really feel like for the residents and majority of South Montgomery County, for these both of these ordinance, we should vote it down because both the rezones on Swift Drive and the PUD are linked. I mean, if you look at it as far as traffic assessment, if both of who here is against the PUD and Swift Drive, just raise your hand. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So and I've talked to people that live in southern Montgomery County because that is a main access point in front of Gary Matthews. That intersection is really, really important. And a lot of people feel like this is just going to gum up the intersection further and cause further issues and traffic runoff in Greenland Farms and the Hillwood area. But on top of that, they're going to use Manning Heights. They're going to use those back roads back there behind Big Lots. And that's pretty narrow, pretty hilly, poor visibility. And this is not something that we need. I feel like we should vote this deferment down and vote the ordinance down. Thank you.
Councilperson McLaughlin on the motion to defer or refer.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to amend the motion that we postpone until the next regular session so that traffic assessment can be done versus deferring back to the planning commission.
You've heard the motion on the amendment to the amendment. You got heartburn, Mr. Baker? All right. Mill about smartly. You heard it from our parliamentarian. The motion can be amended. It's been properly motioned and seconded. We are on the motion to postpone until the March regular session to allow for a traffic study. Councilperson Reynolds, you're on the list. Do you wish to address the Councilperson McLaughlin's amendment? Yes. You're recognized.
So I have concerns regarding the overall PUD and that there's language that needs to be tightened up, especially considering the conversation about widening the road. And if we narrow and we only say postpone, then all that we will see is a traffic study and we don't leave the opportunity for the other items to be readdressed before it comes back. So I would not vote for a narrower, just to have this traffic study because I have other questions. And if we defer it back, that gives them the opportunity to clean that up before it comes back to us.
Councilperson Zacharias on the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. The previous speaker said exactly what I would have said, so I have no more comments on this, but I would like to remain on the list for the motion to defer.
Okay. If you'll push your button again, we'll get you there. Councilperson Streetman on the motion to postpone.
It's a motion to amend the motion to refer.
To postpone.
By postponing it to the next regular session for the purpose of conducting a traffic study.
Right.
Yes,
What
sir,
he
I'll wait.
said. You're recognized.
I'll wait, sir.
Okay. Councilperson Red on the motion.
I guess it's a point of inquiry. Can they do the traffic study if it were to pass first reading without a vote from the council?
Yes.
Since it takes two readings, could he just do it during that period of time?
Yes, I think you heard the applicant say they would do that.
Okay, well, then I'll vote no on the postponement because it's got to have two reasons anyway. Thanks.
Councilperson Allen on the motion, the amendment to postpone.
No.
Councilperson Zacharias? Okay, you're back. Councilperson Streetman? I'm sorry, I'm just pushing buttons up here. You're recognized.
I've actually heard, I know I seconded the amendment to that, but I have heard from Mr. Tyndall, and he did say it would actually just be cleaner if it came back to the RPC. So if we stay with the original request to send it back to them.
Okay, you've heard. We still have lights. I just want to make sure I don't miss anybody. But we're on the motion to postpone until the amendment to the amendment.
Yeah, exactly, Mayor. It's a motion, what you have before you is a motion to amend the motion to refer. And the way you're amending the motion to refer is basically substituting a motion to postpone. So if you vote the motion to postpone down, then you will still have the motion to refer before you. If you approve the motion to amend the motion to refer, then you will still have to take a procedural vote on the actual motion to postpone. This is just a motion to amend the motion to refer.
Okay, any questions about that? Are you ready to vote? Everybody know what you're voting on? All right, let's hurry and take the vote before you forget. All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
2 yes, 11 no, and 0 abstain.
The amendment fails. We're now back on the motion to refer to the Regional Planning Commission. Councilperson Zacharias on that? Okay, you are recognized.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I am prepared to vote no on this ordinance, but I will always err on the side of additional information. So I think a traffic impact assessment would absolutely be appropriate to making the most informed decision here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Allen.
So I have to agree with the previous council member. I am prepared to vote no on this also. However, I do like to give everybody an opportunity to, and for us as a council to do our due diligence and make sure we have all the information before we say no, because if we say no, it will be a whole year before they can bring it back. So, thank you.
Councilperson Reynolds.
I would just like to say the same thing. I'm prepared to say no, but I do believe that everybody should have the opportunity to present all of their information, and I want to make a fully educated decision.
Councilperson Red.
I believe that we should go ahead with first reading, and then between first reading, second reading, he can do the traffic study or whatever study that he would want to do. So I'm gonna vote no.
Councilperson Shekinah.
I'd like to call for the question, Mayor.
Question been called for without objection. Any objection to ceasing discussion? Hearing none, so we'll cease discussion. And we are voting on the motion to refer to the Regional Planning Commission of Ordinance 68. Everybody got it? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
10 yes, 3 no, 0 abstain.
Motion passes. Thank you. We're in Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you.
Push
Thank-
your button.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 69, 2023, 24, first reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of Sydney B. Hedrick for zone change on a parcel of land located south of Swift Drive and Ridgecrest Drive intersection from O1 Office District to R3 3-family residential district. The Regional Planning Commission recommended disapproval. The Regional Planning Commission staff recommended disapproval. The Regional Planning Commission recommended approval. I have a second motion to make, but first I need to get it on the floor. I make a motion for approval.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 69. Councilperson Streetman.
And at request of the applicant, I make a motion to resend this back to the Regional Planning Commission to look at the zoning of R2A.
Motion been made to send this ordinance 69 back to the Regional Planning Commission, give applicant opportunity to revisit the classification. Properly seconded. Councilperson Holloman, you recognize on that motion.
Thank you, Mayor. It's an R2 neighborhood. I mean, the fact that it's R3 and then R2A, the residents here, they're not asking for anything unreasonable. They just want it to match the rest of the neighborhood. I mean, that's not unreasonable, and I hope that y'all have driven on Swift Drive because this needs to be addressed tonight, and I don't want to postpone this or push the rock down the road, but please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have to repeat what I said last time. I will always err in favor of additional information. I'd like to give the RPC an opportunity to provide comments as well as the different city departments on what an R2A zoning. Personally, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make, but again, I think we owe ourselves the complete information. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
I have a legal question, perhaps. Just sending it back for an R2A, why are we narrowing the return? Why don't we just return it back to the RPC for review? What difference does that make? Because there might be a conversation, and I'm not saying that would happen, but after tonight, they may decide to do a R2 instead of R2A. And if we motion to send it back as an R2A, is that all they can come back with?
Mr. Baker.
It's a little complicated, but I'll try to summarize it and make it as quick as possible. The applicant has a right to have their application acted upon within certain time limits. The application is for R3. If it does not get acted upon within the time limits, it's a denial. We all know that, all right? If you make a motion to refer, you can make it just a motion to refer for further study, or you can try to put some strings to it and say, we want to make a motion to refer because the applicant has asked to amend their own application from R3 to R2A. When it goes back, let's say you do it that way, and that's actually what you have before you. When it goes back, the RPC can study it, the staff can study it, the RPC then, at some point, they will need to act on the application as it's presented to them. If the applicant seeks what he says he's going to do, they will need to take a vote on whether to recommend approval to you all of R2A. Let's say, though, that they don't like R2A. They can vote that down, and as you know, it still has to come back to you whether they voted up or down. And they can say in their recommendation, well, we voted down R2A, but we think it would be appropriate as 2. So they could in their recommendation, they could take that action. When it comes back to you, though, unless the applicant changes his mind, it will need to come back to you as R2A, because that is, the applicant controls what they're requesting. They control their application. And so you have to deal with what the applicant is requesting. What you could do, though, is when it comes back to you, no matter what the RPC says, you can go, well, we don't like R2A, and we're going to just vote that down. Then either the mayor or the city council, by separate legislation, a resolution, could ask the RPC to take it up yet again and, for R2. Is it R2 already?
No,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
01.
yeah. So if that's what the mayor could do it on his own, or via letter request, or the council could pass a resolution saying, okay, now that the R2A's been voted down, we want you to take a look at rezoning it to R2.
But if we send it back with a proposal just to refer back to the regional planning without a stipulation, that still allows the applicant to choose what they want to do.
Yes.
I mean, that leaves that door
Yes,
open.
the bottom line is the RPC and the council ultimately has to act at some point on what the applicant has requested. But that doesn't prevent the mayor and or the city council from changing it to R2 ultimately. And in fact, the RPC, they have to act on the applicant's request, but they can also make a recommendation that it be R2. Because zoning and map and text changes to the zoning code can also be initiated by the RPC themselves. It can be initiated, a request for it can be done by the mayor alone through a letter request. It can be done by resolution request from the council, and the RPC can self-initiate it. But ultimately, any change has to, obviously, as you know, has to be approved as an ordinance, 2 readings by the city council.
But I would like to propose that we just return it to the RPC and then let the applicant and RPC, then it won't have to bounce back and bounce back and bounce back.
Well, he said tonight he's going to ask for it to be changed to 2 alpha. So I assume that's what he will do.
Okay, then I'll
Yeah,
just.
yeah.
Mr. Baker, before you, I have one question.
Yeah.
When it comes back to us, will there be another public hearing, just for the public's awareness?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, we've got people on the list. Councilperson Holloman, did you wish to address the motion to refer?
Yes.
You're recognized.
So I don't think we should refer. I really think the best option, if R2 is not a desirable outcome, then we should just go ahead and just vote it down. But whatever the outcome for the residents, I will reach out with my email, and y'all send pictures of Cumberland Drive and all that beautiful traffic, and just send me all the emails, all the pictures of the traffic, and we'll go from there. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilperson Allen.
So I have a question for the mayor. My question is it possible he's sitting right there for us to ask? Would he be acceptable
No,
for it to just go back?
No, we're back in regular session. So we have a motion before us to refer back to the Regional Planning Commission for 2A consideration.
I'd like to amend the motion to refer it back just to be studied.
You've heard the motion to re-refer back to the Regional Planning Commission without stipulation, properly seconded. Any comment or question? Councilperson Streetman, did you wish to address that motion?
Yes.
You're recognized.
I'm really not sure why we're amending this. He stood up there and said what it was he wanted. He's going to choose what he's bringing it forward as, and that was what he asked for it to go back. So I don't anticipate him changing his mind on what he's going to ask. That was what he said, and he's the one that gets to choose what zoning he asks for. So I really feel like we're kind of wasting our time on this vote by doing this. We're just sending it back for them to look at it as requested by the applicant themselves.
Councilperson Redd?
I call for the question of the amendment of the amendment.
Okay, the question has been called for, properly seconded, to cease discussion on the amendment to the amendment. Any objection to calling for the question? Seeing none, hearing none, we are voting on the amendment to the amendment, which is to refer back to the RPC without the 2A stipulation. Every member, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
5 yes, 7 no, 0 abstain.
Motion fails. We are now back on the motion to refer to the Regional Planning Commission with a 2A recommendation. Councilperson Redd, you're
I
recognized.
call for the question.
Question's been called for, properly seconded. Any objection to ceasing discussion on the motion to refer to the Regional Planning Commission for 2A consideration? No objection. We are now voting on the main motion to re-refer ordinance 69 back to the Regional Planning Commission. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
11 yes, 2 no, 0 abstain.
The motion to refer passes. We are now ready for item D, ordinance 70. Councilperson Streetman.
Ordinance 70, 2023-24, first reading, an ordinance amending the city zoning ordinance of the city of Clarksville, Tennessee, as it pertains to the RM1 zoning classification. The Regional Planning Commission and the staff both recommended approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 70. I think there's some additional information clarification that Mr. Tyndall wanted to provide to us. Without objection, Council will go into recess to hear from Mr. Tyndall on ordinance 70. Mr. Tyndall, please, sir.
Good evening. I think you heard from David Smith tonight of the Street Department, and I think there was some clarification provided based on our original recommendation and then further information from them about Manning Heights. So I believe the talk tonight was a...
We're on the RM1 zoning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Well, let me go grab my map. I kind of memorized it. Sorry. This is Z70, the PUD. That's why I got a little confused.
This is
two different
ordinance
file numbers.
70,
Okay.
zoning case Z01.
Thank you. I sent out to City Council earlier this week a map and some more information about the RM1 clarification. What we also learned as doing some more research is that about 50%, 48% to be exact, of the RM1 lots located out there are owner occupied. And in fact, I mentioned to one council member, I don't think I threw it in the email, but we actually had someone come to our office just a few days ago asking to put back a permanent structure of a double wide, which is treated like a stick-built or conventional built home. RM1 does not currently allow that. So that's just one example, and I expect there to be some others. We think this is kind of one of those least things we can do to help the public get through this time out there as they start working with their insurance companies, start looking at what their options are. For some of them, I'm not going to lie, dividing the land into 1 or 2 lots may be the best option to recoup some funds so that they can either stay there or find some upward mobility. And in some instances, I think the question was phrased to me of, we don't want to see subdivisions out there. Well, I don't think any of these parcels are large enough to see what you would consider a traditional subdivision of like 8 or 10 lots. 1 or 2 at a time, I think. They're, for the most part, smaller lots to begin with. And the RM1 is equivalent to R1A zoning, or 12,000 square feet. So still a substantial quarter acre or so lot size across the board. We're not changing that. The only thing that's really changing in this ordinance is permitting the mobile home as well as the stick-built, conventional built home.
Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Councilperson McLaughlin, did you have questions for Mr. Tyndall? I do. Okay. Any questions for Mr. Tyndall? Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yes. I would like, so there is an amendment being proposed, Mr. Tyndall, that would give this a 6-month, you probably don't have it, but would basically give a 6-month, would give this a 6-month period, and then it would revert back.
Let's get that before you ask. We'll come back in a regular session, get it properly before us, and then that way we can discuss it.
All right, I
That's
would like
okay.
to get his input.
Oh,
if
sure,
possible.
I got it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Tyndall? Stick close. All right, we'll go back into session, and now, Councilperson McLaughlin, you're recognized on your amendment.
Thank you. So clarifying here, I did pass an amendment out. There was a conversation last week during the meeting that there were some concerns that, yes, we do want to try to help the people who were directly impacted by the tornado, but I didn't feel like it should be a sweeping let's allow everybody with RM1 to do a single family home regardless if they were affected by the tornado or not. So I drafted an ordinance or amendment based with the language that we used on Ordinance 62 in December for the special session about the allowances for permit fees for building codes. And I had sent it for review. Long story short, it was discovered that this would have to go back to the planning commission because of the rules with zoning. So, and Mr. Tyndall does have a copy of this. I did send him a copy today. So I'm going to make a motion that we refer this back to the planning commission. Now, with that being said, okay, with that being said, this is a timely issue. We want to try to help the people impacted by the tornado, and if necessary, I believe the mayor would be willing to call a special session if we needed to get this through on two readings in pretty quick order. So that's where I'm coming from here on that, so.
Okay, you've heard the motion to refer ordinance 70 back to the Regional Planning Commission, properly seconded. Conversation, questions, Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
So I would like to address the sponsor and just ask the question. There's no, from what I read, we're not changing what Mr. Tyndall is proposing. We're just saying only for 6 months. Is there a change to his original? So I didn't get that. Could I get clarification?
It would be limiting, it would not be for everybody in the city of Clarksville that has RM1. It would be only for the people directly impacted by the tornado that have RM1 zoning classification. And with that, it would follow the same rules that we already passed in December for the permit fee, the waiving of permit fees for demolition and whatnot for the people who were impacted.
Okay.
So that's why I basically struck everything that was presented except the ordinance number and then redrafted it for clarification. But again, it doesn't matter because for legal reasons, it has to go back to the planning commission before we can make any changes to it, so.
And I missed that. The real reason I was asking was if we could just then pass his and then take it back in 6 months. Revert it back. That's kind of what I was thinking, but okay. Thank you.
Councilperson Allen, on the motion to refer?
Yes, I'm willing, well, wait a minute. I think I need to speak, I'm not able to speak on this because it didn't get on the table, right?
She made the motion to refer ordinance 70, not the amendment.
So if we do the referral, could we possibly take out the 180 days? Because some people are taking longer than that to even start changing their property.
Well, Council.
I mean, it's
is
gonna
that
take
directed
us
at the
18,
sponsor?
yes, to the sponsor. It's gonna take us 18 months to rebuild our church, and we don't know what we're gonna have to do in between now and then.
I believe that would be the planning commission's decision once we refer it back. I'm not referring it back with this exact stipulation.
Okay.
But my desire is that we limit it to the people who were affected and not everybody. And I think everybody's aware of that.
Thank
so.
you.
Okay. Mr. Baker.
Mr. Tyndall has asked me to state to you that he feels like he needs a little more direction. So in the sense that it would be really a motion, I would suggest to you, a motion referring the ordinance, the main motion, which is drafted as Mr. Tyndall wants it and the RPC wants it. It would be a motion to refer that ordinance, not your amendment, but to refer that main motion ordinance back for further study regarding the imposition of a temporary, a sunset provision, which is what yours really is. And that is because that change is different than what he's proposing, along with the other change that you just talked about. His version applies citywide. You want it just to apply to tornado victims. Those two things, any court would say, are material changes to both his version and if they were contained in your amendment, if that was before you, which is not yet before you, that would be a material change from his version. In either case, when there's a material change in zoning laws, it always has to be referred back to the RPC pursuant to state law because they have to The RPC has to review it on the first instance.
Councilperson McLaughlin.
That concludes my report.
That concludes your report. Okay, you've heard our legal counsel advise that it would be sent back with clarification on the time limit as well as the geographic limits. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yeah, I did have a question and I thought I put it in my notes. I can't remember what percentage, 48% are on property, but what percentage of our RM1 is in the tornado versus the rest of the hospital? I think that was part of the report that Mr. Tyndall shared. I'm not positive. There was a map that he shared. I don't remember the percentage though. Does anybody?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Okay, any other question about the motion to refer to the ordinance 70 with provision to the Regional Planning Commission? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
13 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Motion to refer passes. Councilperson Streetman?
That concludes my report, Mayor.
All right. Consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please read the consent agenda.
All items in this portion of the agenda are considered to be routine and non-controversial by the council and may be approved by one motion. However, a member of the council may request that an item be removed for separate consideration under the appropriate committee report. Ordinance 39, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance amending Part 2, Code of Ordinances, Title 13, Utilities and Service, Chapter 3, Gas, Water, and Sewer Service, the City of Clarksville relative to gas rates, charges, and/or fees. Ordinance 50, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Clarksville authorizing the mayor or his designee to conduct negotiations and to enter an agreement for purchase of easements and/or rights of way, or should negotiations fail, to pursue condemnation through use of eminent domain for acquisition of property for a public purpose for the Appleton, Old Russellville, North Liberty Church, Rodier Sidewalk Project. Ordinance 51, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance authorizing the exercise of the right of eminent domain to acquire easements, property, and rights of way required to facilitate construction of the Greenwood Avenue and Edmondson Ferry Road Sidewalk Project. Ordinance 52, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance of the City of Clarksville authorizing the mayor or his designee to conduct negotiations and to enter an agreement for purchase of easements and/or rights of way, or should negotiations fail, to pursue condemnation through use of eminent domain for acquisition of property for a public purpose for the Tiny Town Road Sidewalk Project. Ordinance 53, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance authorizing the exercise of the right of eminent domain to acquire easements, property, and rights of way required to facilitate construction of the Northeast Complex Sidewalk Project. Ordinance 54, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor through the city attorney or his designee to conduct negotiations and to enter into an agreement for purchase of the property at 1600 Needmore Road for the purpose of road realignment and a park complex. Ordinance 55, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance rescheduling the July 2024 regular meeting of the City Council. Ordinance 56, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance amending the official code of the City of Clarksville, reapportioning the City of Clarksville for the purpose of electing persons for the office of City Council member due to recently annexed territories. Ordinance 58, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the City of Clarksville, application of Vernon Weekly for zone change on a parcel fronting on the north frontage of Rossview Road, 440 plus or minus feet west of the Warfield Boulevard and Rossview Road intersection, from O1 Office District to C5 Highway and Arterial Commercial District. Ordinance 61, 2023-24, second reading, amending the zoning ordinance and map of the city of Clarksville, application of JDM Holdings for zone change on property fronting on the east frontage of Evans Road, 60 plus or minus feet south of the Evans Road and Shaw Drive intersection, from RM1, Single Family Mobile Home Residential District, to R4, Multiple Family Residential District, and the minutes from January 4th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll entertain a motion in a second. Motion been made and properly seconded on the consent agenda. Councilperson Smith, on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to pull ordinance 39, 2023-24, please.
All right, thank you. We'll take that up under the Gas and Water Committee report. Councilperson Allen, you're recognized.
I'd like to register a no vote on 52, 2023-24.
So noted. Councilperson Reynolds, you're recognized.
Yes, I would like to pull ordinance, item F, ordinance 54, 2023-24. And I would like to register a no vote on item J, ordinance 61, 2023-24.
Thank you. We'll take up ordinance 54 under the Finance Committee report, Chairperson Streetman. All right, anyone else wish to be recognized on the consent agenda? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote on the consent agenda? Every member, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
13 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
The consent agenda is adopted. Thank you. We're now ready for the Finance Committee report. Chairperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start first with the items that were already listed under the Finance Committee for this meeting. I'd like to make a motion to take up ordinance 64, 65, and 66 as one motion.
Motion been made and properly seconded to take up ordinances 64, 65, and 66 together. Any objection? Without objection, Councilperson Streetman.
Ordinance 64, 2023-24, first reading, an ordinance accepting the donation of certain real property from Edward Burchett Property to the city of Clarksville for the purpose of a super pump station. Ordinance 65, 2023-24, first reading, an ordinance accepting the donation of certain real property from ACI Investment Group Property to the city of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Ordinance 66, 2023-24, first reading, an ordinance accepting the donation of certain real property from Melissa G. Tennant Property to the city of Clarksville for the purpose of a sewer pump station. Finance Committee voted in favor of approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of these three ordinances. Any comment or question regarding these three ordinances? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
13 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinances 64, 65, and 66 passes first reading. Chairperson Streetman.
Resolution 35, 2023-24, a resolution authorizing retirement of a patrol service dog, Arlo, from K-9 unit and donation to former police officer Andrew Trescott. Finance and Public Safety Committees voted in favor of approval, and I so move.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of Resolution 35. Any comment or question regarding this resolution? Seeing none, hearing none, are you ready to vote? All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
13 yes, 0 no, 0 abstain.
Resolution 35 is adopted. Chairperson Streetman.
Ordinance 54, 2023-24, second reading, an ordinance authorizing the mayor through the city attorney or his designee to conduct negotiations and to enter into an agreement for purchase of the property at 1600 Needmore Road for the purpose of road realignment and a park complex. I make a motion for approval.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ordinance 54. Any comment or question regarding ordinance 54? I think we have an amendment. Give me a minute to dig it out here. Okay, Councilperson Reynolds, you're the sponsor of the amendment. You are recognized.
Yes, thank you. I made this proposal last month, and I'm bringing it forward. I had it reviewed by a real estate lawyer to help me with the wording. I would like to make it clear that I'm not trying to change the proposal. I am in favor of purchasing this property, but anyone who would buy this property would say, I want a full appraisal and I would want environmental inspection. Last month, there were several comments about already knowing that there was environmental issues and mitigation responses that we might take when we find them. I'm just saying before the final appraisal, before the final purchase, that we have both of those on file. A reminder that this takes 2/3 of a vote because we are actually legally required to only pay appraisal without 2/3 council. So we owe it to our community to be very, to have integrity and to be very transparent about how we're spending their money. And I think that without these two items, we're not showing that. So I would like to motion that before we proceed with the final purchase or sale of agreement with the property, that we have a current appraisal with the inclusion of a cost approach, sales comparison, and income approach, as well as a phase 2 environmental inspection, which includes soil samples and conclusion of any further environmental remediation.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of this amendment. Councilperson Streetman on the amendment.
Yes, sir. As everybody knows, we've already gotten a current appraisal, and this has actually been a very transparent process. Mr. Smith gave a very detailed presentation to us all last month, going over everything with not only the cost associated with the purchase of the property, but the cost savings that we benefit from doing this, as well as the benefits that there are to the residents along the road that would lose less of their property for the building of this, the widening of the road that we would be doing there. So to do another appraisal, to a different kind of appraisal, we're wasting really taxpayer dollars on that. We already know exactly what it is that we're looking at in regard to that aspect. Secondly, to require a phase 2 environmental inspection, I talked with Mr. Hilborn, who's our building, our facilities manager. Did I get that correct?
Project
Mayor?
manager.
Project man. I know he's a project manager for this. I was trying to get his title correct. That way I could get even more detailed information in regard to this process. And what he explained to me is we did the phase 1. We all know that. We received that. We were able to review that. The phase 1 study environmental inspection, it did not call for a phase 2. So if there wasn't a recommendation from a phase 1 study, you're not going to do a phase 2 because you're spending money that's unnecessary to be spent. Now, one of the things he did talk to me about is that when they're drawing up the lease for the tenant, that they will be including language that another phase 1 study will be required in case there's any type of changes in that 2-year time frame. Should there be anything that's in that phase 1 study that states that a new phase 2 needs to be completed, then the tenant will be responsible for that, as well as for any mediation that needs to be done to correct any issues that have been there. But there's been due diligence done by the city on this. It's been a very transparent process because, again, we've all gotten copies of all of this. So what this is doing that we're voting on tonight is allowing the mayor to actually enter into the negotiations so that we can move further in this process. I ask that we vote this amendment down, allow the process to occur, and let's get this moving so that we can get this done for our community.
Councilperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. The previous speaker kind of touched on what I wanted to mention, and that is this property is going to continue to operate as a racetrack for the next 2 years. I think it would be premature to do this phase 2 study with the soil sampling. At the conclusion of this property's use as a racetrack, there's buildings or structures on there that are going to have to be moved, which is going to require presumably heavy equipment, which again could contribute. The time to do the phase 2 study is then, and I would absolutely support a resolution asking for that study at that time, but I do not believe that now is the time to do it. Thank you.
Councilperson McLaughlin, you're recognized.
I repealed my button push.
Okay, repealed. But Mr. Baker, you have a question or comment?
So this was not provided to me before tonight, and I've just reviewed it very quickly, and I see some problems with it. If you'll look at the very second paragraph there, The approval to proceed with the final purchase sale agreement of the property at the address shall be contingent upon the following being provided to the city council, period. Notwithstanding, comma, should any information be disclosed in the due diligence requested below, city council shall reserve the right to object to the subject transaction. The whole very idea of due diligence and what this calls for is it's going to disclose information. So I would suggest to you that if you leave it worded the way it is right now, you're not going to be able to conclude the sale. All right, so that's a problem. It should say probably notwithstanding should any adverse information. All right, so that's the first problem. Secondly, it talks about requiring a phase 2 environmental inspection, which includes a soil sample, and then the second bullet, and conclusion of any further environmental remediation. That's rather vague, and it doesn't state who's going to pay for environmental remediation. You notice the next sentence says the cost of this assessment. The assessment, I assume, is the phase 2 environmental inspection. Remediation of any problems that are discovered, though, is a whole separate matter. And as you all, I'm sure you can understand, environmental remediation is one of the most costly, can be one of the most costly things any entity or organization can undertake. So I don't think this language is adequate from a legal standpoint.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Baker. All this will be taken up in the purchase sale agreement and in the lease back to the tenant for the 2-year period that he's asking for, subject to council approval. So continue down the list. Councilperson Allen.
So, in the amendment and in the original, the last paragraph in the original, it says $7,000. I just think we need to put that out, that it's not $7,000.
It's a Scribner's error. We'll
Yeah.
call that a Scribner's error. It
Yeah,
should be
it's in
7
both,
million.
it's in both documents. I think that she might have copied and pasted, but it is in the original.
Councilperson Reynolds, you're next on the list for your amendment.
Yes, I would like to add, I would like to tell you that the last sentence says it should be made public available prior to finalization. So the intent is not to finalize the sale until this is proven. An old Army saying, if it's not in writing, it doesn't happen. And I still maintain that we as a council, the appraisal says $3.5 million. That's what the appraisal says. And we're saying $7 million. So where is our evidence to show why? That's all I'm asking, our evidence to show why we're doing that. And to be very transparent and not to pass the buck to the next group of elected people who have to answer for our decision tonight.
Councilperson Redd.
In the first sentence, that the mayor through the city attorney, his designee, may negotiate and enter into an agreement for the purchase of the property at 1600 Needmore Road, further identifies a map, partial, that according to the assessor. This is the wording problem somewhat I have there. I think perhaps there should be a period that would go there. And then it says, according to the assessor's office for Montgomery County, Tennessee, not to exceed 7 million plus reasonable acquisition costs, as if the assessor's office has something to say of the worth of it. I guess it's just the wording there. Instead of a comma, sometimes you maybe should have a period. I just don't see this sentence well. And my question, what was, remind me, the appraisal of the property? Somebody said that there's already been one done.
We did an appraisal that's roughly 3.5 million. And
3.5.
then part of the road improvements we would have to spend without acquiring easement, as well as constructing a pretty substantial retaining wall, 3 million plus, nearly 4 million on that retaining wall. So it's cost avoidance to purchase the entire parcel of 83 acres.
Yes, but the assessor of Montgomery County's office has nothing to do with the 7 million.
No.
That where it would be in excess of, right?
Right.
I just think that sentence should be rewritten, this one somehow, and I don't want to rewrite it. So that's all.
Councilperson Little, you're recognized.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for on the amendment. Any objection to the question? Ceasing discussion? There is objection, so we're putting it on the board. Requires 2/3 vote. We're voting. There was a second. There was an objection. So we're going to vote to cease discussion on this amendment. As soon as the clerk gets it on the board, we'll be voting to cease discussion. Requires 2/3 vote, which is 9 of us. All right. Every member, please cast your vote on ceasing discussion. Requires 9. Madam Clerk, take the vote.
I wanted to change my vote.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
9 yes, 4 no, 0 abstain.
Motion to cease discussion passes. We are now voting on the amendment as presented. Every member, cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
2 yes, 11 no, 0 abstain.
Amendment fails. We're now back on the main motion of Ordinance 54. Councilperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
I was planning to speak on the previous,
Okay.
on the amendment.
Okay. Councilperson Allen, on the motion, on the main motion, Ordinance 54.
So when the previous member was speaking about the sentence change, that same sentence is kind of screwy in the original. So hopefully somebody look at that and change it, because I don't want to change it either. As for this purchase and everything like this, I just think we should do it. It's in my ward. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Redd?
I call for the question. I think everybody knows what they're gonna do on it.
Okay,
so.
question been called for. Any objection to ceasing discussion on Ordinance 54? Seeing none, hearing none, we're voting on Ordinance 54. All members, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
11 yes, 2 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 54 is adopted. Second reading. Thank you. Chairperson Streetman.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
All right. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. Gas and Water Committee, Chairperson Holloman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. All righty. I know y'all are excited. This is going to be a quick report, and then we can move on. Just a reminder, with the implementation of credit and debit card transaction fees, gas and water customers can continue to avoid these fees by paying with cash, check, money order, one-time bank draft, and/or automatic bank draft. Within the next month, Gas and Water will be installing a new payment kiosk at the main building on Madison Street. The kiosk will be located in the second lane of the drive-through and will operate just as one located at the North Clarksville Services Center, accepting cash, checks, and credit cards and debit cards. And lastly, many thanks to all the Gas and Water employees who supported the United Way campaign for 2023 and for being an integral part of helping the city of Clarksville reach and surpass its fundraising goals to support our community. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, that concludes my report.
You have one ordinance that's been pulled from the consent agenda. If you would read and motion for Ordinance 39, please.
Okay. Ordinance 39, 2023-24, second reading. An ordinance amending Part 2, Code of Ordinances, Title 13, Utilities and Service, Chapter 3, Gas, Water, and Sewer Service, the City of Clarksville, relative to gas rates, charges, and/or fees. Make a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of Ordinance 39. Councilperson Allen, you have amendments or
Yes.
amendment? You're recognized. And then-
But Ward 6 pulled it off.
Yes, I told him that.
You are recognized, Councilperson Smith.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, for letting me speak.
You have the floor.
Thank you. First, I would like to say thank you to all of those who have sit here so long waiting to get to this ordinance. And those of you who are in the audience, I'm gonna ask you to stand, please. Who are here in opposition of this to raise the gas prices for ordinance 39, 23, 24. We want to thank you. I know you're speaking in opposition against raising gas prices. I want to thank you for sitting so long. Thank you. And the reason I pulled this is because I've gotten many calls in opposition of this. I want to thank Mr. Shelton for speaking in opposition of this, and we heard his concerns. I want to thank all the citizens and constituents that have called me in support of this opposition to raise the gas prices and fees for citizens in this city. Your support speaks volume to what is morally right for those who are less fortunate, senior citizens, those who are on fixed incomes as well, single parents with children, and those who are victims of the tornado. I just don't think that it is time to make the decision to raise these rates and fees. I know that the director believed that we should raise gas prices so that we will pay the same fees as the county. City residents pays taxes for the county residents to utilize all of our city amenities freely and without hassle. The Gas and Water Department Director also has already raised the water and sewage fees a few months ago. I believe that price gouging to increase incomes is a bad and poor ideology. Thinking about the 16,000 plus customers whose services had been turned off. We're thinking about this reactivation fee of $200. It's so much before us, and I don't think we need to vote today for this. I think we need to vote in opposition of this, and I know that we hear the cry of many citizens and constituents, our constituents who is against this. And I must say, this is nothing against Mr. Riggins. I saw him the other day and hugged him at the, we was in the mall, or in some places, not against him. It's against about doing what is morally right for our citizens. We've heard the cries, and I'm asking you all to vote against this. Let them go back and rethink this before we vote for this. I think we have a lot of amendments up here. Something concerning the fees, reactivation fees.
Well, let's stick
All of
with,
the-
let's
I
stick
am,
with the
Mayor.
main motion, please.
I am, Mayor. I know you always interrupt me, and I know it's a political plot. Well, it should have been a
What-
point of order call,
what
but
is
he
the-
interrupted me.
What is the point of
So
order?
I please,
To,
I'm not
Okay.
arguing, I'm just speaking my
okay,
piece, and I have
Councilperson
a right
Smith,
to.
you have the floor.
I have the right to speak.
You have the
That's my
floor.
First Amendment right, and you are interrupting me,
You have the floor.
and you need to hush.
Be civil, be civil.
Well, she needs to hush. That's what they're
No,
telling me in
okay,
their own
without-
way.
Okay,
Point of
let's
order.
get
That's
control
what
of
it
this.
means.
Okay,
I'm tired
no
of being
further back and
interrupted.
forth.
Well,
Okay,
y'all
you
need
have
to
the floor.
Stop interrupting me when I'm trying to speak.
You have
I'm
the
human
floor.
just like anybody else.
You have
I
the
have
floor.
rights just like anybody else. And I'm tired of you doing that.
Okay, on
And
the
I'm
amendment.
speaking.
On the main
Please
motion.
let me speak. Okay, as I said, we need to vote against this. I know that some of y'all gonna be running at the end of this year. And so make notes, spread the word of those who are running this year for city council. Do not vote for them. And then we have some running in 2026. Mark your information down for those who vote. We have people all over this city complaining about raising gas taxes because they want to. There's no need to. And so I'm speaking out against this, and I will continue to speak out against it, and to represent those who I was voted in for to do a job. And that's what I'm doing. Thank you all once again for being here, each and every one of you. And that's all I have to say, if I'm not going to be interrupted.
Councilperson Little, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I have an amendment I would like to introduce. I think everybody has a copy of it. And I motion to bring forth my amendment to ordinance 39-2023-24.
Okay, you've heard the motion. Do I hear a second? Second. It has been properly seconded to the Little amendment. You are recognized for an explanation, please.
I love it. So, as we all know, this is a very touchy subject, and after a long thought and consideration into it, and knowing how a lot of things were gone into coming up with the budget and anything that needs to come forward for projects and everything like that. I didn't want to touch too much, but I did want to do enough to at least help the people who were experiencing a lot of issues with the doubling of rates and everything like that. So going along with the chart we received that said at least 16,000 people were disconnected for non-payment, I want to enter in an amendment to add in the following sections, and you'll see that added into the chart in red. It's the reactivation for delinquent accounts. Within business hours would be $50. Reactivation for delinquent accounts after hours is at $100. That just keeps it at the same rate that it is right now for regular reactivation, but it still keeps the availability for them to go forward and push through the regular reactivation rates for people who aren't struggling necessarily, but just decide to cut off the services in general and then want to bring them back. This at least will help out those who are struggling, and we're not kicking them while they're down. And that's it. That's all I got to say.
Okay, I've got a list here. Councilperson Allen on the amendment. Councilperson Reynolds on the amendment. You are recognized on the amendment.
I would like to amend the amendment, and I would like to take and retain the current rate of activation fees and reactivation fees. So it would just make them all the same, not just the reactivation fees. And I'd like to speak to that. And since
Okay, wait a minute.
I motion that we,
You're amending the little amendment by doing what?
by removing all the increases for activation and reactivation fees. This one.
I guess, point of order, because I feel like it'd be off, because I add in touch.
Okay, let me ask a point of clarification to the sponsor of the original amendment, Councilperson Little. Is it a two-pager?
Yes. Sorry, my apologies, yes.
Okay.
You see the red?
So just that in red is
Just
what
that
you're
in red
amending?
is the only thing I am amending by adding in that additional section for fees.
So you're adding those two: reactivation delinquent account business hour fee, $50, reactivation delinquent account after hours, $100.
Yes. And,
Okay, you, anything else?
yes, sorry. I knew there was one more thing I wanted to say.
And then I'm coming back to Councilperson Reynolds.
So with these fees and stuff like that, I did look at other municipalities in the city, in the state. I believe Memphis probably has the lowest at 25. We sit somewhere in the middle at 50. Nashville's above us, and then even Knoxville is lower than us for their reactivation fees. So I feel as though, I know that they want to increase the reactivation fees, but I feel like in order to stay in the middle and also make sure that we're welcoming to anybody coming in here and keep with the trends of staying consistent with the other cities around us, I feel like the reactivation for delinquent accounts should be that amount.
Okay, back to you, Councilperson Reynolds. I just need to clarify. Yes, point of order, Councilperson Smith. All right.
I pulled the ordinance off of the consent agenda, so this would be an amendment to my, to this ordinance that I pulled. This would be
Yes.
an amendment.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's to the 39, 2023, 24.
Right.
Okay. Just,
Okay, all right. Council,
I want to make something clear for the record, if I may. And for Madam Clerk in the minutes later. All right, so the little amendment seeks to amend the main motion ordinance 39. And there's already a reactivation, business hours, $100, reactivation after hours, $200. And what your amendment proposes to do is to establish two new categories of reactivation as shown in red. And one is a reactivation for business hours for delinquent accounts, and one is a reactivation for delinquent accounts after hours. The business hours one is $50, the after hours one is $100. I just want to make sure that there is a common understanding about what a delinquent account is. And your intent, I take it, and I want to make sure that Mr. Riggins understands what your intent is too, is that that's just, that they are late in paying. Is that what you mean?
Yes, late in paying, because I took it from also something that Memphis has in for their payment. They have the reconnection charge for delinquent accounts. And so I wanted to add that into ours also to state for delinquent accounts.
All right, and that would be something different than an account that has already been closed out and then they want to reactivate it, right?
Yes.
And that's why you didn't change those first two reactivations.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Councilperson Reynolds.
So I'm just adding to the previous amendment by saying that we should not increase activation fees from the current. And so I'd like to speak to that. Since 2020, this council has voted to increase taxes, the water and sewer rates, increase charges for our most vulnerable residents by increasing the cost of the credit card to pay a bill. Often that's how nonprofits give them a credit card to pay. And we are proposing to have some of the highest fees to connect for services and increasing the gas rates. If this passes in July 2024, just 6 months after the devastating tornado, our residents will face an increase in water and sewer rates simultaneously with an increase in their gas rates. The approved increase that we total on this amendment on these is a total of $3.7 million for gas, and if we add the credit card, annual $4.5 million at the end of 2027. That's what these increases are. I think that we can afford not to change the activation fees, and if that is an issue, we can come back and address that.
Okay, you started off with an amendment. Are you offering an amendment, or what are we doing here?
The amendment, Mayor, is
You're
to not,
recognized.
I'm sorry, the amendment is not to increase any of the activation fees. The water sewer is currently 100, I'm amending it back to 50. Overtime is 100, I'm amending it back to 100. Gas was 100, is amended to increase 100. And I'm saying back to 500 for the overtime, 200. So I'm saying to take out the increase in the activation fees.
Is that written anywhere? Is that what this is?
That's what this is.
Okay, I'm trying to keep up. Okay, this is Mr. Baker.
This piece of paper that I've got,
It's right from the chart on the original.
all right, because it's got more categories.
Hang on a minute. Hang. Oop. Let's listen to Mr. Baker so we know what we're doing.
I want to make sure that that you're voting on the same thing and it's understood, particularly for the minutes. All right, so is this your amendment right here?
Yes. I took it right off of the chart.
It has reactivation business hours, reactivation after hours at the bottom. All right, that makes perfect sense to me. I understand what you're doing there. Basically, you want it to stay the same.
Right.
All right, but then you keep referring to it as your active reactivation fee. But you also have these other things, water sewer service, overtime, gas, and then another overtime.
The new service charges.
Right, the new service charges. So you're amending more than just the reactivation fees.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
It says new service.
Anything else, Councilperson Reynolds, on your amendment?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Councilperson Streetman, on the Reynolds amendment to Little's amendment? Yes, sir. You're recognized.
Mayor, actually, what I would like to ask is, since this is being discussed in regular session and wasn't brought forward in executive session, can we please allow Mr. Riggins to come up and talk about his opinion and the financial impact of these amendments?
Without objection, we'll hear from Mr. Riggins. Mr. Riggins will stand out of session momentarily. Do you need a copy of what we're looking at?
Yes, sir.
Somebody make him a copy, please.
Well, here's Councilman Reynolds, we have an extra.
Yes. Councilperson Allen, point of inquiry.
Will he be able to go ahead and talk on mine too, or do we want to do it once mine comes on the table?
Yeah, let's do them separate. That way
Okay.
we're not confusing,
Thank you.
conflating. You're welcome. If you'll push your button again, I'm sorry. Mr. Riggins, you're recognized on this amendment. Or let's do it this way. Councilperson Streetman, you have a question for Mr. Riggins. Thank you.
Yes, and I mean, really, we have one before us and then the other, I guess if this one fails, we'd bring you back up. But can you talk to us, this one is the one I'm referring to, Mr. Riggins. Can you talk to us about the financial impact to, in your opinion, of this particular amendment here with everything being split in half from what you brought forward to us?
Hang on, before you answer. We have a motion for this amendment, but we don't have a second. Now we have a second. Mr. Riggins, please answer the question.
Okay. I don't know that I can give a good estimate of impact because this is the first time I've seen this. This has not been shared with me. I've not had an opportunity to run any numbers, anything, so I have no idea. I can tell you, based off an amendment that was shared with me and discussed with me to help draft, and I did, and was asked about the financial impact, and I have that, which is much less than this, which would have an impact of over $500,000 one time. The previous amendment that this is amending, I can tell you would have an impact of over $800,000 a year, continually every year at least, based on the estimate that I have now. So this one would be much more than that. That's all I could say at this time.
Okay, and obviously, I mean, as we've talked about before, you brought these changes forward because we're taking a cost, essentially. I mean, we're taking an expense here for every time we go reactivate. It's not anything that has to do with, you know, your heart or your morals or anything. This is strictly, these increases have been done because we're having to cover the cost to be able to go out and do it. Is that correct?
Correct. Remember, this is not something that gas and water staff came up with. We hired a third-party consultant to do a rate study and study these fees. And actually what they came up with was higher than this. And I will say in those areas that I've looked at, that I've heard comments about who have fees that are lesser than ours, what I can tell you is if you look at their fees as compared to rates and then compare them with ours, the utility company has to make their money somewhere. So if they're not making it here, that means the rates are higher, which means they're subsidizing one for another. And as you know, I don't believe in one group subsidizing another. So that's why I brought the pay study as the final outcome from the company, as I proposed, minus any amendments.
Well, and I apologize for putting you on the spot. I would have assumed this would have been at least discussed with you prior to coming before us. But I don't know if anybody else has questions for Mr. Riggins.
Okay, we do. I'm gonna go down the list. If you'd like to ask Mr. Riggins a question about this amendment, we're only on this amendment, which is the Reynolds amendment to the Little amendment. Councilperson McLaughlin, do you have questions for Mr. Riggins?
Yes, sir.
You're recognized.
Okay, Mr. Riggins, could you just reiterate what the increase in fees is going to pay for?
Yes. So the fees, not the rates, but the reactivation and activation fees, that is to cover the actual cost because this is physical labor. This is a person going out and turning on, turning off service. This is for software that we're used to keep up with these accounts. This is for personnel in the call center taking these accounts, customer service reps, utilities at our service center buildings, things like that. Every action, there's a cost associated with it. And I can tell you the $50 will not cover the cost of an employee in a vehicle. It will not do that. That's why this is proposed. And you will remember in gas, part of this as far as the after hours and also, well, the business hours and after hours. When in referring to gas, there's also a deterrent factor because if you remember when we spoke about it, in water, it's easy to capture that minimum fee because nobody turns the water off in the summertime. In gas, when we have customers who only use that gas heat, that consistent monthly bill is what helps me maintain the system. And any utility company counts on that because it costs me money to get gas to your home, whether you use it or not, whether your service is on or not. And so when a customer chooses to turn that gas off to not pay that minimum fee, that $50 is much less than I would have captured, which throws my finances out of whack, which is again another reason for this increase. Any utility company, any third-party rate study company will tell you that your service fee must be more than 6 to 9 months of minimum gas usage in order to deter someone from doing that, or at least make your money up. That's the reason for the proposal.
On the reactivation fees, by the time somebody has become delinquent enough to be cut off, how many days have passed from when that bill was generated? For example, I got a really high bill this week, but it was from the tornado from when my daughter, all her belongings were being laundered at my house. So that was December 9th, 10th, and 11th, but I just got the bill for it this week. So
Right.
by the time somebody is at the delinquent point where they're cut off, how much time has passed where that bill has been unpaid, I guess is my question.
A month, I would say. Because remember, by the time you get a bill now, the way our cycle works, by the time you receive this bill, we're already reading meters again, so the bill's already a month behind. And so even when you're shut off, you're permanently shut off. Not only do you have that bill, but you have another one coming. You may remember that's why we chose to change our policies on the amount of days to pay, because the complaint we heard many times, almost every time, from customers who had their water and or gas cut off: why did you let me build up 2.5 months worth of bills and then shut me off? Because I have all this, because you have to pay it all off then. By changing that by 5 days, now we only build up at most a month and a half, something like that. It was at the request of the customers who it affected the most. Yes, I hope that answers your question.
Okay, and then the follow-on is the increase in new services, the explanation what that money is going to be generated for.
That's the same. It's the physical work of going out. It's the software. It's all personnel, equipment, vehicles to go back and forth. And that's where I'm leery of changing. Well, this amendment's not. It's changing both. So I will just say a reactivation has a higher cost to the company than a service fee, because I'm going twice. There's a double action on everything. There's the cutoff, there's running, and there's the call, there's everything to turn that back on. But it's the actual physical. It is a true cost to the company that can be captured through software, payroll, equipment, gasoline, tools, everything. It all factors into this.
Okay, and I remember, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but during the discussion at the Finance Committee, when this originally came before us, there was conversation about using some of these funds to fix pipes that we know are going to be an issue anytime now because they're 70, 75, 80 years old, and they're coming in from a distance, so.
Those are on the rates, not these fees.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilperson Holloman, did you have questions for Mr. Riggins?
No, Mayor.
Okay, Councilperson Smith for Mr. Riggins?
Yes.
Okay, you are recognized.
Am I allowed to talk?
Right now you are.
Okay. Please don't interrupt again. Not you, whoever you allow.
Mayor, I'm gonna make
Now,
a point of order.
excuse
Okay,
me.
point
I'm
of
talking.
order.
I'm talking.
Point of order takes precedence. Councilperson Redd?
Thank you, sir.
What's the point of order?
The, under the rules, a point of order is not cutting off somebody's speech and cannot be used that way, because, of course, the
But they
chair
do it.
wouldn't allow it.
They did.
And under the rules too, in chapter 43, page 392, you cannot, it's under decorum. You cannot talk to another member or question their motives or talk in a way that would question their motives. I think it was Lance Baker that put it the best way one time. We debate the measure,
not the member.
That's right.
And I just wanted to remind everybody of that.
Okay, thank you. Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace, for bringing clarity. My question to you, Mr. Riggins, is will these rate increases happen monthly for this gas or what? How are these increases? Is it all at once? Is it every month on the bill? How is it going to come forth?
Are you speaking about rates or
Fees,
the
rates?
fees in the amendment?
Mm-hmm.
We're on we're on the amendment, which is fees.
Fees, okay.
Okay, Mr. Riggins?
It would, these fees would only be, these fees in the Reynolds amendment, if I may. The new service fees would only apply when someone starts a new service. The reactivation fees would only apply when someone is shut off for non-payment and calls in to be turned back on.
Yeah, I understand that, but I wanted you to answer about how would this increase happen?
That's,
Can you answer that?
they
think
pay
you
at the
just
time
did.
they
I'm
call to
talking
have it
about
on.
increase on the bill for gas. We're going up on the gas rates.
But we're not talking about that at this point. That's on the main ordinance.
Okay, well, now let me ask the question on the reactivation fees.
Okay.
Okay, you said something about, it costs the workers to go out and to, turn the service back on and turn it off. So don't they get paid for doing this anyway? They get a income, we pay them, the city pays them a paycheck every 2 weeks. Why would we have to pay another extra $100 for reactivation fee? You say it's costing the workers to go out to do that. Well, they're getting paid anyway.
These fees are how they get paid.
I understand, but we're already paying fees. Why would you want to increase it when there's no need to increase it?
Because the rate study proved that these fees aren't enough to cover my cost of those employees.
What
So
rate study? Who did you get a rate study from?
Jackson Thornton, there was an email sent out from the clerk that included this and many other documents, this entire rate study that I'm holding before you right here. 2023 gas cost of service study pro forma 2028, City of Clarksville.
Well, I just think that you shouldn't be listening to them. I think that, because this rate doesn't make sense to me, to go up $200. It doesn't make sense.
I shouldn't be listening to them?
No. You need to do what is morally right for the people
Yep.
and for this city.
Ma'am, well, in my opinion, what's morally right is to do what the state holds me accountable to do, because if I don't, then I will be in trouble and forced to do other things that will be more costly down the road.
Well, we don't have to vote for it. You can present it. That don't mean we're gonna vote for it, just like we're here and debating now.
That's kind
And
of,
so-
that's kind of the posture we're in right now.
Okay.
Voting up or down.
Right. So what do you have in place for someone who cannot afford to pay that bill? What do you have in place? CDE has something. What do you have? Before you turn it off, can you give them a chance before you turn it off?
We do one-time waivers for deposits.
It's just all just for deposits?
We have that. We give people people in this situation, if they asked, a list of nonprofits and things like that. No, I do not have the
You don't
same
have
thing that was
anything?
mentioned about CDE. What I told that individual is I will look into that, and if I can make that work, I will. But that doesn't change the fact that this would still need to happen. And then if we see that we can do that and implement that as a policy, that would not need to come back before the council. That's something I can do
Yeah.
in-house. That would be on top of this. That would be waiving this.
So who sent out our bills? Do you all locally or it comes from somewhere else?
It comes from somewhere else. It's a third party.
Who is the third party?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head right now.
So you don't know who sent our bills out to
I
us?
can find out, but do I know? Absolutely not, ma'am. I have several contractors, and I could not name them all for you standing right here right now.
But it's only one place. Is that correct?
That's
Where our
correct.
bills come
That's
from. And it's a
correct.
third party, but you don't know who it is. Who sent our bills out?
Standing right here, I do know. I can email that to the clerk tomorrow to get out to you. I can tell you it's bid out like we do all of our other vendors that are not professional
So is it
services.
bidded out every year?
I believe it's the way the policy works. We do a bid for 1 year, and it can be agreed upon to extend that 2 more years for a maximum of 3 years before it has to be bid out again. That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you. When we get to the rates, I would like to know something about the rates. Thank you, Mayor, for letting me talk. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Councilperson Allen for Mr. Riggins,
I do have a question real quick.
you are recognized.
For the reactivation fees, if you move, say I move from one apartment to another, is that considered reactivation or is that considered new service?
That is a transfer fee. That would be a new service.
That's considered a new service. Thank you.
Correct. You're welcome.
Councilperson Little for Mr. Riggins,
Yes, Mayor.
you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Riggins, for everything. My question's real quick. As far as, by 2027, with the current plan as it is right now, do you have a projected outlook as far as the amount of increase in revenue from this? The total increase by 2027?
It would be in the rate study. You're talking about rates, fees, and everything?
Yes, with, as going forward, rate fees and everything, if we were to pass this right now, by 2027, what would be your increase from?
Well, on this amendment, if you pass this, I have no idea because I don't know the impact of this amendment to my finances.
Sorry, not the amendment, I just mean the original motion as,
Can't speak on that.
Yeah, we're on the Reynolds amendment to your amendment,
but it
which
just
is
goes,
which is the activation fees, new service fees, et cetera.
in order to make an educated decision on what this will affect, I want to make sure I know exactly what the big picture is and then what this would affect along with my own motion.
Mr. Riggins?
What,
The
all I
original
can say to
pricing
that
of-
is, if this information had been shared with me before tonight, I could have had that number for you. But since it was not, I do not have that number.
Yes. I'm talking about the original plan, I just want to know that number, so, I know you said that you didn't have this with enough time to do this, and I understand that.
Right.
I just, for my own knowledge, for me to apply to this plan that Reynolds is working on, that Reynolds has brought forth right now, I just wanted to know the total outlook from the study in 27.
I believe for the gas rates and gas included, it was, correct me if I'm wrong, about 3.7. It was under 4 million. But I believe in 2027, at full completion, 3.7-ish, something to that effect. Again, I can't
And that's just for
I can't
gas?
say how this affects that, how this changes that.
Okay, and that's just for the gas?
Yes.
Okay, was there anything for the water? Well, the
No.
water's on here too, so that's all, that's the only thing I wanted to know was just so I could write it down to apply my own understanding to this, with this. It's for me,
I understand.
and it just helps me operate when I go on doing this amendment. It may not be information that other people need for this amendment. It's something that I need for this amendment. That's all I'm saying.
I understand.
So, it'd be great to get the water amount, but I understand if you don't have it, and I don't wanna put you on spot or anything. I think for your
Well,
work.
It's too late for that.
And again, I don't know how I would know it if I'm not giving it ahead of tonight. I don't know these numbers. I mean, yes.
Councilperson Little, you have the floor.
I had no further questions.
Councilperson Streetman for Mr. Riggins. Councilperson Red for Mr. Riggins.
I've just got my light on to talk with a question.
Well, we'll get to that shortly. Councilperson Reynolds for Mr. Riggins.
I just wanted to.
Yes or no for Mr. Riggins?
Well, I was gonna share, information. I believe we had spoken before, Mr. Riggins. and it
Mr.
was
Riggins,
Approximately 1.8 each year for a total of 7.753. So at the end of in 2027, the increase would be about $3.7 million dollars a year annually is what the increase is before the change.
That is correct.
Right.
At 2027, we're at full implementation for everything, 3.7 a year.
A year increase. For everything without the amendment.
okay, any more questions for Mr. Riggins? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Without objection, we'll revert back to regular session. We are on the Reynolds amendment to the Little amendment. I have a list here. Councilperson Holloman on the Reynolds amendment.
Yes.
You are recognized on the Reynolds amendment to the Little amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. If it's okay with the chair, I'll just go ahead and address all three amendments?
No, just one at a time.
Okay. All right.
We're having troubles.
Okay.
I'm keeping my head above
All
water.
right, I'm gonna vote this down, and that'll be it. Thank you.
Councilperson Streetman, on the Reynolds amendment, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate Mr. Riggins coming up here and fielding the various questions. But as he's told us before, this is, and as he told us tonight, this is to cover the cost for the employees and everything that's involved for them to go out there. I understand that we've had approximately 16,000 people that have had their water or gas shut off, and it's had to be reactivated, whether by choice, whether by delinquent payment. However, there's also over 100,000 customers that have not had to have that. And you're asking all of the customers to subsidize covering this payment because of the fact that we want to try and do, I guess, what feels good. I don't know. I think we have to be fiscally responsible to gas and water and know that we've also voted for the pay increases that cover the individuals that go out there to do it. We vote on the budget that has to do with any of the vehicles. We are up here making the decisions that end up reflecting on the other decisions that come down the line. And to ask those customers that are the same single parent, the same senior citizen that's making their bills every single month and doing what they have to make those bills, asking them to subsidize it for others, I think is the wrong thing to do. Now, I will say that he mentioned, trying to come up with a program maybe that could keep that shut off from happening. But I also want to talk about there is Project Help available. You can find information directly on the gas and water website. This is a way where customers can choose to be able to pay extra money on their bill to help other customers to be able to go to the Community Action Agency and get funding to help pay for their bills when they are low income and they don't have the funds to be able to make those. So this is an opportunity, instead of us saying, yes, you're going to continue to subsidize it, that's an opportunity for them to choose to say, I want to give some extra money. There are customers that do that every single month, some quite a bit that are doing what they can to help. There's other nonprofits in the area that are there to help our individuals that are limited funds. I think there's a lot of things that we can do, but to continue to say that they need to take a loss by cutting all these. Mr. Riggins brought this to us. He told us this is what he needs. In fact, in that study, they actually recommended him go even higher, but he chose to go with what he believed, looking at all the facts, would cover the cost to be able to go out there. So I ask that we vote this amendment down. Let's move on to the main motion so that we can move forward with this. Thank you.
Councilperson Red?
I'm still here to call for the question, but I'm gonna let those two, she's got her, Wanda, sorry. This member has her light on. Can I call for the question after? I don't want to cut off a debate. I call for the question then.
Okay, question has been called for, properly seconded. Any objection to calling for the question, which is cease discussion on the Reynolds amendment to the Little amendment? Hearing none, seeing none, we are voting on the Reynolds amendment to the Little amendment. Every member cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
3 yes, 9 no, 0 abstain.
The Reynolds amendment fails. We are now on the Little amendment as presented originally. Okay, I've got Councilperson Allen on the Little amendment.
No.
Councilperson Little on your amendment.
Yes.
You are recognized.
Thank you. So, just to bring up some little points that I was able to get into, and I appreciate. I apologize, Mr. Riggins. I'm sorry if I said or did anything that may have not been productive to this meeting. Apologize to everybody else. But so going off of what was brought forward, I know for mine, I think you had made a statement of an $800,000 difference between, I'm guessing that 3.7 million that would occur. So that just lets me know that it would be an increase of around 2.9 million then instead of the 3.7 million. Also going along with that, I understand that we talk about a lot of things with the charities and such as that nature. May not be an accurate description, but if it's those 16,000 people who have been shut off for delinquency and they decide that they want to be reconnected, And let's say if they do decide to go to a charity, let's say all 16,000 people can afford to do it on their own because then they got another bill coming in soon, and they decided to go to a charity. In order for a charity to pay, let's say $100 worth of bills for each 16,000 people, then a reconnection fee of $100 for each person. That means $200 per 16,000 people, which comes to around about $3.2 million, which is very close to that 3.7 million that we're supposed to be, I guess, taken in additionally. So I'm just wanting you to put that into thought and perspective. I don't think there might be charities out there, but I don't know of any in Clarksville that can afford $3.2 million for 16,000 people, which is over 16,000 people, but that's on the lower end. And so with this at least gives an opportunity for a lot of these things to still pass through to be able to get those increases needed. It still gives an increase in the amount of revenue that the gas and water does take in, while at the same time adding a new pay fee to the chart for delinquent accounts. That's all.
Councilperson Allen on the Little Amendment. No. Councilperson Red on the Little Amendment.
Call for the question.
Question's been called for on the Little, okay, the question has been called for on the Little Amendment, properly seconded. There is objection, so we're going to put this on the board and vote on ceasing discussion. We're not voting on the amendment, we're just voting to cease discussion. Requires 2/3, which is 9 of us. We're voting to cease discussion on the Little Amendment. Every member, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
6 yes, 7 no, 0 abstain.
The motion to cease discussion fails. We are back on the Little Amendment. Councilperson McLaughlin on the Little Amendment?
Okay.
Yes?
All right.
You're
I
recognized.
thought you
That's okay.
hit my light. Okay. So thank gosh for calculators on phones because all these numbers were spinning. And so I want to just make sure that I'm understanding the math correct on this. So what the sponsor of this amendment is proposing is 50% of the reactivation fees that's recommended by the Gas and Water Department for people who are delinquent accounts. Because
Is that a question for the sponsor?
yes,
Just so we can get his mic turned on. Would you answer the question?
I would just classify it as staying at the current rate for delinquent fees.
Okay.
Okay.
Councilperson McLaughlin.
Okay, so if my calculator was correct, so the reactivation fee, if this were to pass, would be average between the two, $115.62, which would fall in line with what the estimated cost would be if it was not after hours. So may I ask Mr. Riggins if my math is correct on that? I'm just trying, I want to make sure that I'm voting based on what is accurate and not what I propose is accurate.
Okay. Mr. Riggins, without objection, we'll allow Mr. Riggins.
So this is based on the 3.7 million divided in half, divided by 16,000 people, and that's how I got the number. And that would only be paid if there were actually, it would only be accurate if there were 16,000 delinquent in a year.
I have some estimates on this one only because there's another amendment that I have estimates for.
Okay,
And I can do the math easily off the spreadsheet that I have in front of me.
okay,
This amendment would cost, this is what I was speaking about, earlier. This amendment here would cost us over $800,000 a year, every year.
in addition, so you would be short 800,000 if this was passed based on the
Yes,
scale.
and let me explain how I reached that. If you'll remember in the documentation that I sent the clerk and she forwarded on to you, there were 3 months where it showed all the fees.
Right,
New services, reactivation, I took those reactivation fees for those 3 months, again, an estimate. But I had that information readily available. Took those 3 months, added those up, multiplied by 4 to get a year. And then did what the other amendment will propose if we get there. And again, that's how I know these, on that estimate, would cost $818,400 a year, estimated.
Okay, thank you.
May I clarify?
Sure.
Is there anyone? So one thing about this amendment that I will say cannot happen, and I think the city attorney, Baker, mentioned this earlier. We have reactivation, you're adding reactivation delinquent account business hours and after hours, but you're leaving reactivation business hours and reactivation after hours. Those are technically the same thing.
That's exactly, if I may, I'm sorry.
This would need to be struck.
Okay, hang on.
For
Okay.
purposes of the record, that's exactly what I was trying to get at when I was asking the questions earlier and for the minutes. And the questions are, it's not clear in my mind, probably because I'm a dunce sometimes, but, or maybe all the time, some of you may think. But what is the difference between a reactivation fee for a delinquent account and a reactivation fee for other situations? That's the first question. And then second question, what would be a reactivation that is not associated with a delinquent account? So in other words, reactivation associated with delinquent account, okay, they didn't pay and they end up finally getting cut off, and then they want to come back and reestablish their account, that's a reactivation. But then that begs the question, okay, well, what is that other reactivation for? And in that situation, if once someone's account is totally cut or ended, then when they come back, wouldn't that just be the establishment of a new account and not really an activation? So to me, all these things open us up to potential problems, lawsuits, if we're not really defining what we mean by these terms. And I think it could be redundant to have reactivation fee, after hours, business hours, and then reactivation fees, after hours, business hours, just for delinquent accounts. I agree with him. You may need to consider just deleting the reactivation, the two that you were leaving the same. I'm not clear on what the difference is.
All right, Mr. Riggins, and then we'll go to the sponsor of the amendment.
Yes, may I see your questions, Mr. Baker? So the difference between the reactivation fee for delinquent accounts and reactivation fee for other situations, there is no difference. If it's a reactivation fee, it's for non-payment of delinquent account, it's the same thing. What would be a reactivation fee that's not associated with a delinquent account? Same thing. They're one and the same. The only way to do this properly, if you wanted to do it, is would leave what you had in red and strike through the reactivation fees above that. And then if the account is fully closed out, wouldn't it be establishing a new account? That is absolutely correct.
Okay, you've heard the explanation from Mr. Riggins. I'm going to come to the sponsor of the amendment, and that's you.
Thank you. Quick question. So, if it's delinquent, my understanding delinquent is a past due debt. Now, does that debt disappear if it's delinquent? And then when you went to go, so the debt's still going to be there, that has to be paid in order for the reactivation. So delinquent would be different than a new activation because there's a past due debt.
The reactivation, there is a new service fee. I'm not talking about those. You're not talking about changing those, correct?
So it'd be reactivation with paying your past due debt and the reactivation fee.
What I'm talking about is the two items just before yours in red are the same exact thing as what you have in red.
So
the reactivation, by definition, in our system and how we do it, I understand other cities may, but they've got other software, they've got other rules, policies, they define that, we do not. So I believe what you're after is you would just strike through these two above that and replace them with these to do what I believe you're asking to do.
I also want to add in protections for the gas and water, just in case people do, like you stated before and you brought to our attention, abuse it to where they just cut it off so they can save money. Now, this is different than somebody who can't afford to pay their bill.
It's the same. That's what I'm saying. The only time what you have in red it comes into effect is the time in black just above that. It's the
And-
same exact thing
And I
on
would,
R.
I would suggest to you that really, what would be the cleanest way is to, your amendment really should have just changed the amounts. And just leave it reactivation, business hours, reactivation, after hours, and just go and then change the $100 on reactivation business hours to 50, and the reactivation after hours from 200 to 100. That's the cleanest, easiest way to do this, I would suggest to you.
Sponsor the amendment. Ball's in your court.
So, I just want to understand, so, I know you explained a lot, just so I can make sure it's a clean decision in my mind. It doesn't matter if it says delinquent in front of it or anything else, it's still the same as the reactivation.
Correct, because for us,
Okay.
it's either you're either off because you scheduled to be off, and then it would be a new service. You're late, but you're still on, or you're turned off. This only occurs when you're turned off.
Okay,
So that's what I'm saying. It's the same.
okay.
It's the same.
And if it was to stay at this, because you said you did the race before, that would be that 800, whatever thousand difference.
According to what my estimate is for another is, yes, the $818,400 a
Okay.
year.
All right, thank you for
You're
that.
Okay, we're back in regular session. You still have the floor?
Thank you.
You're, okay.
Well, in order to clean things up, and also to, like I said, allow the people who are behind, and then not only that, but also allow them the chance to be able to pay things, to get caught up due to this increase in rates that they are about to experience also, along with the meter fees and everything else going up. I motion to amend my motion to strike through my reactivation for delinquent, and instead strike through the 100 and 200 for reactivation in business hours and reactivation in after hours, to state business hours reactivation $50, after hours reactivation $100.
You've heard the motion, properly seconded. I'm going to come to you one more time, Councilperson Little, for you to explain it,
Okay.
just so we know, and then we can discuss it or not. So
All right.
you are recognized. So give us the skinny one more time.
Yes. With legal's advice and director's advice, I am going to advise and encourage my constituents to, not just constituents, but my fellow council members. I know we're not up here for a charity or anything like that. We're not. We're not a charity or anything like that. There are charities out there who are put in place to assist with people when they can't afford to make those payments and those bills. And going along with this, as I've already stated earlier, with the amount of changes going on and the reactivation rates, we could say all day there's charities for it, but I don't think any charity can afford the reactivation rate for 16,000 people. So in order to allow for our growth to still continue with the city, gas and water, and they'll continue with their business, I will not change anything else but the reactivation rates. That's it.
Okay, Councilperson Allen, on this amendment to his amendment, you're recognized.
What I do want to say is, speaking on his amendment, and we keep bringing up nonprofits, but nonprofits run out of money. They run out of money, and you can go to any safe house, any help program, anything, and request to get your bill paid, and they can say, I don't have any money, and then there's no other nonprofit, and so you're stuck not having your bill paid. So let's not keep saying, oh, nonprofit. There is not enough money out there for nonprofits. Thank you.
Okay, Councilperson Reynolds, on the amendment to his amendment.
Yeah, I would just like to remind everyone that we're digging into the details, but overall, this is one budget increase that will go into one pot of money to be distributed. It's not like a certain amount of money goes in for reactivation, or a certain amount of money goes into rebuilding or repair. We did not get that level of detail of where this money is going to be and how it's going to be spent. when we approved the 20 cents for increase of our taxes, the mayor reports back to us every year, which I appreciate the transparency. And even though sometimes I poke at him that I want the whole 20 cents, I am grateful that he breaks down to the community what we're doing with that increase and how we're spending it. We're not doing that here. We're putting it all in one big pot of money. And while Mr. Riggins is wonderful, he's not going to be there forever. So we're putting all this money into a pot that will allow them to spend it without really telling us what they're going to do with it. So I know that we're digging into who and how this money and where it's going, but to take care of our most vulnerable residents in a large pot of money is really that's what we're going to decide when we vote. Do we take care of the community and understand that sometimes people get in trouble and there's enough money to spread around? Or do we just be individuals and vote for our own pocketbook and not worry about anybody else? That's basically the bottom line.
Councilperson Streetman, on the little amendment to his amendment,
Yes, sir.
you are recognized.
Thank you, sir. Talking about making this change, we've already talked about the amount before. And we talked about, I know it's been mentioned, nonprofits, they don't have everything. I want to clarify a little bit for one, the 16,000 people that have been cut off. We can't make the assumption that every single one of those were because they didn't have the money to pay it. I can say myself that it's been a long time. I decided to sign up for automatic draft, so I didn't have to worry about it anymore, but I've had my water cut off before because I completely forgot about having to pay it, set it up on automatic draft, so that didn't happen anymore. Wasn't somebody that needed help with it. I just needed a reminder that I should have paid it in the first place. So I had to pay the fee for somebody to come out there. Not everyone that gets cut off is getting cut off because of the fact they don't have the funds. People do make mistakes in that instance. So not everyone is going to be able to qualify to go to the nonprofit and get assistance. And I would absolutely encourage people, go to the nonprofit before you get cut off. I think the question was asked earlier, how much time is in between when you get the bill and when it's actually due? There's time involved in there that you can hopefully go get help from a nonprofit, from a church. Again, look to Project Help. If we want to be able to help out these people, a great way to do that is each and every one of us. We all have Clarksville Gas and Water. There's no way around it because we live in the city, and people even outside the city of gas and water, we're all welcome to add to our bills each month and take it out of our own pocket to be able to help those individuals. What I'm asking is that we not have our ratepayers subsidize this and cover the cost for this. This does not cover what it costs to go out and do it. I'm asking that you vote against this amendment.
Councilperson Smith, on the little amendment to his amendment,
Yes.
you're recognized.
Thank you. I have a question for clarity on his amendment, Little's amendment. On your first page, you have overtime down there, and you have $200. Then on the second page, you have $200 overtime. So does that has to do with your delinquent account reactivation fee? What is these $200 for?
It's a question for the sponsor. You're
Yes.
recognized.
I haven't changed anything with the front. The second page is where all the changes are happening that I am speaking on.
Okay, so but it's on here, it's the $200 here at the bottom, overtime.
So my original motion that I did was in the red. That's the only thing I was touching.
That's the only thing you're doing. So
I
this
didn't
is
have
already
anything else
the
to
way
do
it
with
is now.
Any other charts or anything else you see on here
It's
that's
already
not in
like
red, I did not do. I strike through that. Now we're on my motion that I amended to my motion, right above it
Yeah, I
for
understand
reactivation.
that.
Okay.
I was concerned about the $200 for gas. Does that have to do with the delinquent account after hours that you're changing, or this just the way it is now? Or,
I can't give an answer to it because I'm not dealing with that section.
Yeah, the amendment.
but it's on your amendment. It's included in your amendment. I see what you're doing. I see where you're changing the delinquent account business after hours to $50 and the reactivation delinquent account to $100. I understand that. But I'm saying in your amendment, it shows $200 overtime for, I don't know what, and then it's $200 it shows for another overtime.
That would be the original. None of this was amended. This is the original. My amendment only points out the reactivation. That's the only thing my
I
amendment
understand
deals with.
that. I just want
So
to know what
anything
this 200,
before it-
what I'm voting on. I want to make
Okay.
sure I know what I'm voting on. I
Yes.
understand what you're saying. And, just for clarity, I just wanted to know what these two, can Mr. Riggins explain that? Well, explain it.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
a,
well, the mayor have to,
well, question to
Mr. Riggins.
Mr. Riggins or
Yes.
Councilperson Markey? No,
Mr.
okay,
Riggins.
council, okay, here we go. Any objection that,
I just
out of
wanna
session?
hear. I just
All
wanna
right, Mr. Riggins, what's the
Yes.
question? Just for clarity and for the
Oh,
record.
okay, on his amendment, we
Yes,
see
ma'am.
here, we see $200 for overtime and $200 for overtime twice, and $200 for gas. Is this, I mean,
And you're talking about the first four numbers in the list,
okay, on
correct?
the first page.
Under new service, water and or sewer, 100, overtime 200, gas 100.
Yes, what's
Next page, overtime 200. That is for new service. That has nothing to do with reactivation fees.
Oh, this for new service.
That's what it says right there in that first column on the
Well,
left.
it don't say it on mine.
Yes, it does.
Where?
Top left-hand corner of that chart.
Councilmember Smith, let me, if I may, try to add some clarity to it. I understand
I
your
mean,
question.
it's
It's a
just-
little confusing.
It is.
All right, so what happens here is you voted on first reading his ordinance change. And part of that was for new service. And there's two different categories under new service. There's water and sewer, and then there's gas. And there is a subcategory for overtime that's connected to water and sewer, new water and sewer service. What's currently in the code for that overtime for water and sewer service, currently in the code, is $100. What he has added in the main motion ordinance is he's seeking to change it to $200. All right?
To be clear.
And then under gas, he has an overtime category connected to gas, and that's
Oh.
what he's proposing is $200. What's currently on the book, though, is $100. So both of those categories he's seeking a $100 increase. That has already passed on first reading. What Councilman Little's amendment does not change the main motion increase for overtime in either category.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I want that clarity for the people that are here and for the constituents that are listening. We might know about it. Some of y'all do, some of us don't, because some of y'all talk to each other and y'all know that. So we need to know. So thank you for clarification on this. And so your amendment, Little, will not even affect anything to do with this added $100 for the overtime, as Mr. Lance has letting us know about. He just explained to us, or for the overtime for the gas and water. So this is not going to help us.
It's new connections.
I understand that. But
Hang
he
on,
still-
she has the floor.
Thank you.
Sorry.
But this is not gonna help us, and I'm not against what you're doing, but you should have touched on all of these added charges, $100. This added $100 for overtime. I added $100 to turn back on the gas and the water. I don't know, all this overtime here. $100 added for gas. We got overtime added for, I don't know which one it is, but, because it's not clear, it's not written out here what it is. But anyway, it's, that looks like $300. More added, and so your amendment is not going to really affect a big change. I see that the activation fee, $50, that's good, and your delinquent account, after hours, $100, that's good. But look like you would have tried to change all of these added $100 back to the normal, or to the standards. You see what I'm saying? And that,
Hang on, she has the floor.
so I cannot vote for this, and it's not against you, but I just don't think that it's gonna do enough. And so that's why I wanted clarity, to make sure that we're not gonna still be paying all these other extra $100 that's on this. I mean, your amendment doesn't change anything on these other added $100. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilperson Allen, did you wish to address?
It was a question originally.
Well, she asked the question, you answered, and then hers was a statement. Councilperson Allen, did you wish to be recognized? Okay. Councilperson Red, did you wish? I'm not.
Call for the question if there's no objection by voice vote.
Okay. Question's been called for, properly seconded. Any objection to the question on the little amendment to his amendment? I hear none. So now we are ceasing discussion and voting on the little amendment to his amendment with the changes that he made. Every member cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
4 yes, 8 no, 1 abstain.
The little amendment to his amendment fails. We're now on the little amendment as originally presented. Councilperson Allen, did you wish to address that?
Yes.
Okay, you're recognized.
So, I also have an amendment. I'd like to get it on the table. I make a motion.
Hang on, before you do, we still got his original amendment because his.
Oh, Lord, okay. My bad, people, my bad.
Okay,
I'm so confused.
I just want to caution the council. You just voted down the little amendment to the little amendment. And the result of that now is you're going to have 4 different reactivation categories.
Right.
Okay. I
Okay.
don't think that's even legal.
Councilperson Red, you're recognized.
I'd like to call for the question of this little amendment by voice vote if
Okay.
there's no objection.
Question's been called and properly seconded on voice vote. Any objection to ceasing discussion on the little amendment? Hearing none, seeing none, we are now voting on the little amendment. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
3 yes, 9 no, 1 abstain.
The amendment fails. Now, Councilperson Allen.
Okay. So, while I do understand that the numbers are not going to change a lot, I felt like we needed to implement the numbers slowly. So, I make a motion to get my amendment on the table.
Second.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of Councilperson Allen's amendment. You're recognized.
Okay, so what this amendment does, I want to explain it, and then I'm going to have Mr. Riggins come up and help me a little bit.
You can
So-
ask him to.
I can ask him to. I already did ask him.
Can't have him to.
So, what this does, it implements the fees incrementally. And so they go up the same year that the rates go up. So when the rate goes up that year, the fees will go up another $25. We worked through the numbers, and if we could go out of session and have Mr. Riggins come up and help me with those numbers.
Yeah, I'm passing food. Hang on a second. Any objection to going out of session briefly?
Briefly.
And Mr. Riggins will let her ask a question to get you in the perfect posture. Councilperson Allen.
Mr. Riggins, what losses are we going to take if we implement this?
Your amendment.
Yes,
As
my
compared
amendment.
to my original
Yes.
ordinance, yes. So in total, one-time money, the estimated effects, and remember, I explained earlier, if you remember how I came to this estimate using the information for a quarter I'd already given you, multiplying that by 4, and then doing the math, doing the equation on the effects. One-time total difference of $538,400. And what that would mean, year one, because that's the greatest area of effect, we know that, $441,500. Year two, and it's because the during business hours then equals what I'd proposed to begin with. So it's a much lesser effect, totaling $64,600. Year three, remember now we're only $25 apart on overtime per the amendment. Year three, from July 1st of 26 to June 30th of 27, difference of $32,300. And of course, in 27, July 1st to 27, when it goes into a full effect, we'll be back whole.
Right.
So that total altogether, $538,400 is what I've estimated. One-time money.
So my question is, will that stop us from doing any projects?
No, if the council chooses to pass this amendment, gas and water can make this work, I believe, with the plan. We can, even the capital projects, again, this money goes toward salaries, things like that. We can make this work if I have to.
This also, if we implement this, we won't get in trouble by the T-Board or nothing like that, because we are raising rates incrementally, right? Just like we're raising the regular rates.
Correct. Therefore, the rate's not being changed. All the projects should stay the same.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hang on before you
Yes, sir.
move on. Councilperson Redd for Mr. Riggins?
No, sir.
Councilperson Holloman for Mr. Riggins?
No, sir.
Councilperson Streetman for Mr. Riggins?
No, sir.
Councilperson Smith for Mr. Riggins? You are recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Now back to what are the incremental rates? We can ask that now on the bill. What is the rate? How much will it go up?
The gas rates
It is
themselves,
on the amendment. She just said,
Let me just clarify. If this amendment is adopted, it only deals with the rates in terms of new service, reactivation, et cetera. If this is adopted, or if it's not adopted, then you can ask your question regarding the rates, because we'll
Okay.
be on the original
I'll
ordinance.
yield.
Okay,
thank you.
you're welcome.
I'm sure trying to get to that.
I know you are. We'll get
I'm trying
there.
to get to that, and you are too.
We'll get there
Melissa.
one day.
Yes,
Okay.
Lord.
All right. No more questions for Mr. Riggins. Without objection, we're back into session. Councilperson Redd, you're recognized. You have the floor. You're recognized then.
Okay, so I actually contacted Mr. Riggins and had him talk to his CFO, and those where those number came from. Altogether, it's $500,000, and then we slowly work the community up to paying that higher rate. I think that is the due diligence we can do for these families that are already struggling. In the next 4 years, they will have, raises will happen, things will happen to where we'll have more money and everything. People will have more money. Hopefully they grow. Hopefully people grow financially. And we'll have less and less people not having to use these having to do these reactivation fees. Now, they will never disappear. And there's always going to be that single parent out there that cannot afford it. But hopefully, doing it this way, we're preparing the public for what's coming. And as you heard, we're not going to lose our projects. We're not going to lose nothing. Mr. Riggins said we can make it work. So the money's not going to cause us to be detriment. T-Board's not going to come after us. The big bad wolf's not going to come after us. We'll be okay if we do this. Thank you. And it's legal.
Councilperson Redd, back to you.
I call for the question of this amendment.
Question's been called on the amendment. Do I hear a second? Properly seconded. We are voting to cease, any objection to ceasing discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, okay. We're voting on the Allen amendment as presented. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
6 yes, 7 no, 0 abstain.
The amendment fails. We're back on the main motion. Councilperson Holloman, you're recognized.
No, thank you.
Councilperson Redd, you're
I
recognized.
call for the question of the main motion.
Motion been made and properly seconded in favor of ceasing discussion on ordinance 39. Any objection to that? We have objection. We'll put it on the board. Takes 2/3, non-debatable motion. So every member, we're voting to cease discussion on ordinance 39 as originally presented. Glad we don't pay you by the word, Madam Clerk. We're voting to cease discussion. It takes 2/3, takes 9 of us. All right. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
8 yes, 5 no, 0
We're
abstain.
back on the motion, talking about it. Councilperson Zacharias on the main motion, ordinance 39.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. Boy, I really appreciate all the discussion. It's given me time to do some some looking up of some numbers here. I've heard people talk about rate increases, and I know we're not talking about specifically, or maybe we are because we're talking about the whole motion, specifically connection fees at this point. Anybody who's purchased a car knows that if you take money away from somewhere, it's going to get added somewhere else. So I went ahead and looked up, and I will cite my sources here. The average rate per 1,000 cubic feet of natural gas in the state of Tennessee as of August of 2023, which is the most recent data. That current rate, the average rate in Tennessee, is more than double what we are being charged right now. All right, by Clarksville Gas and Water. When all of these rate increases go into effect in 2027, it will still be below the average rate that that a resident, a citizen in Tennessee is paying now. So yes, we can talk about what other municipalities, what other cities are charging for their reconnect fees, but they're getting it back in the unavoidable fees, which are the rates. Okay? This rate increases are painful. Nobody likes to sit up here and vote for a rate increase. It's not good for job security. Okay? But it makes sense. Okay? Right now, these rate increases are still, and this is without any inflation over the next, 4 years. The new rate in 2027 is lower than the average rate in the state of Tennessee is today. That's what we need to be looking at, guys. Like, okay, that's all. I'm sorry.
Councilperson Reynolds on ordinance 39.
Yes. I just want to remind you that it's still, timing is part of it, and also that the rate increases, again, just like the water and just like the taxes, is the city residents that we represent are taking the burden of this increase. I'm opposed to the way that they are structured. I'm also, as I indicated earlier, I feel that these rates should have come, not put all into a big pot. We've really kind of torn them down to how they were increased, but they're really going into a pot of money. I think that it would have been more appropriate to tie them to certain projects with an annual reporting of how we spent this increase. Our residents have seen an increase, and affordable housing is an issue, and this is all part of the problem. I just want to say one more time that we can no longer say that growth and infill will pay for itself. In our city, in 3 years, we've raised taxes, we've raised water, we've raised gas, and all as part of our growth, and the residents are paying for it. So I just leave it at that. I'm not going to vote for this.
Councilperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to speak again. I appreciate it. I just want to say that I will be voting against this because, as I said, I will stand up for the residents of this city who have called me. I've gotten over 22 calls. I want to thank Mr. Carr Johnson for standing up and supporting me. And I want to thank every person that came tonight in opposition of raising these gas taxes or rates or fees, whatever you want to call them. And I noticed that some people say that they're always trying to shut me up, but that's okay. I'm still going to speak. I don't care what they think and how they feel. I'm going to speak. And so what I say tonight, I'm opposed to what has been brought forward. I think they need to go back and rethink this ordinance. They need to redo it. They need to put some creative thinking in it, because to me, it's just laid out. Hey, we need this increase. Hey, we want this money. Just because you have the right to do it or you feel that you can do it, don't mean that it is morally right. I will be voting against this, and I hope that the citizens understand and will continue to stand up in opposition for something that they know that is not right. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilperson McLaughlin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the previous speakers mentioned that this money just goes into a pot and we won't know how it's allocated, but that's what the budget process is for. So I expect that during the budget proposal, we'll have an idea of where the funds in the overall budget will go for gas and water, just like any other department budget that we review and approve. And then also, this isn't an easy decision for any of us, but we also can't have our utility go bankrupt or fall into default because we're not meeting our obligations. I think all of us at some point in our life have struggled financially. One of the previous speakers mentioned about a single mother with kids. I was in that situation. We could afford to have heat on in one room in our house. We hung a blanket to protect the rest of the house, but we cut in other places that most people got to go to McDonald's all the time. We didn't get to go, and I know that it's a struggle, but we have to do it. Our utilities aren't at. Their goal is not to make money; it's to cover their expenses, and that's exactly what this is going to do. Thank you.
Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll also go along with what was said from the person before me. I know I mentioned earlier about there was times that when I was older, I missed it just because I forgot to pay the bill. But there were times when I was a college student, and I mean, I had to go a few days without electricity just because I didn't have it to be able to do. So I understand what people go through. But I do want to clear up something that was stated by a previous speaker. They talked about how, this just shows that growth doesn't pay for itself. This has zero to do with growth. We talked about this a month ago. Actually, when new growth is coming about, new developments are done, Mr. Riggins actually figured out a plan when he first came into directing the gas and water department and how to capture funds so that the developments that were being built, they were covering that infrastructure that needed to be done. What he's talking about where we need to, part of the reason we need to increase these rates is because there's capital projects that need to be done. That includes a 70-year-old pipe that needs to be replaced. You cannot attribute that to growth. We're talking about 70 years ago. So there's a lot of old pipes and infrastructure that needs to be replaced, and that would need to be replaced whether we had grown any or none at all. So he's been very diligent in what he has put together for us with this plan. It's staged out because you're not going to do every bit of those capital projects all at once. That's why it's spread across the years in incremental increases to be able to cover each of those projects as they need to be completed over the next several years. So I appreciate Mr. Riggins and all his work on this, and I will be supporting this because, again, as the previous speaker said, and as we addressed in the previous session a month ago, 2 months ago, I'm not sure exactly when, we talked about the need for these funds to go in, because either way he's going to have to do this, whether it's done through them requiring us to increase the rates or the other group coming in and requiring us to do the capital projects. This is stuff that has to be done either way. And no, it's not an easy decision, but it's the right decision that we have to make.
Councilperson Allen, you're recognized.
I'd like to thank Mr. Riggins for helping me with the amendment. I know that it was you crunched the numbers the best you could. Thank you. What I'd like to say about this right here is, while I understand that some of us have struggled, some of us have not struggled, the fact of the matter is that people are struggling right now. So whether you struggled 20 years ago, let me tell y'all something. Clarksville has been good to me. I got out the military here. I was a single mother here. I had one child. There was times when I didn't have no food to eat. I went from getting out the military, being a single mom, on welfare, working my way through college, working my way up to where I am today. But taxes and rates and everything weren't hitting me over the head every single time. When I tell people, I've told the mayor this before, Clarksville has been good to me. I wouldn't have been able to survive like that at home in Baltimore, Maryland. I wouldn't have been able to do it. I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at today. And if I had that opportunity, other people in Clarksville should have that opportunity. But as rates and everything go, their paychecks are not keeping up with their rates. They're not doing it. We can sit up here and we can say that minimum wage is up to $15 an hour. We can say that all we want. But $15 an hour, who can live off of that and pay the rent that they're paying? It's not happening. So while we can all sit up here and say this is what we need to do, we have already proven that we are one of the best in the state. This is not a thing. While I understand that eventually, years from now, T-Bar can come and see us. It's not happening today. So I ask for you guys to vote this down. I ask for you guys to, and you can think that I'm being charitable or anything like that, but the fact of the matter is that I don't care what y'all say. $15 an hour today does not mean the same thing as $15 an hour did 5 years ago. It does not. So while $15 an hour was good back then, it's not today. And if you can, with good conscience, vote for this, God bless your soul. Thank you.
Councilperson Little, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Not going to take much time. A lot of things have been said, and I want to mirror what previous persons have said. I want to thank, Mr. Riggins, Mr. Baker for all the work that gets put in everything. I know it's not easy, and then for us to get up here and try to change what you have worked on it puts a lot of pressure and stress. So I understand that. I do want to put out there that there's always going to be people struggling, and then at the same time, as we continue to grow, that's also going to be a continuing growing number of people who are going to struggle also and be outpriced in not only homes and rent and everything else. And Clarksville is a great place. I'm blessed enough to not, I used to be there where I had to count every penny I had. I had to look around the house and scrounge and just to come up with something. I'm blessed right now to where I don't have to do that. I can pay all my bills and stuff like that, but not everybody's like that. And with the way the world's going with the economy and the pay and everything like that, there's some people who will never get there. And so I just want everybody to remember that.
Okay, that exhausts the list. We're ready to vote. Every member, please cast your vote. Every member voted. Any member wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
8 yes, 5 no, 0 abstain.
Ordinance 39 is adopted. Second reading. Chairperson Holloman, we're back to you on your committee report.
Yeah, that's right. That will conclude my report.
All right, thank you very much. Neighborhood and Community Services Chairperson Shekinah, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. For February, for the Clarksville Community Neighborhood and Services, on the 30th of January, the city received its long-awaited FEMA Public Assistance Declaration for the 9 December tornadoes. This new declaration is not to be confused with the earlier FEMA declared individual assistance. This is the public assistance to ensure that the city of Clarksville and its taxpayers are reimbursed for its labor, equipment, and other expenses incurred during the emergency response and continued recovery. The mayor's tornado long-term recovery task force leads the effort and includes the leaders of Neighborhood and Community Services, the Street Department, Building and Codes, Finance, Purchasing, Communications, and Gas and Water. They continue to canvass neighborhoods, work with volunteer organizations, residents, and community partners to remove debris, provide unmet residential needs, and communicate with state and federal representatives and long-term recovery groups. Residents with unmet needs are encouraged to call 211 or visit the city's tornado page on its website to register for one-on-one assistance. This includes debris, housing, mental health, and other financial support. FEMA's individual assistance applications close on the 12th of February, 2024. All affected residents are encouraged to apply and may do so by calling the toll-free number of 800-621-3362. That's 800-621-3362. Or go online to disasterassistance.gov. Or they can download the FEMA app or visit the Disaster Recovery Center at the public library. As of Friday, the 26th of February, we have visited over 6,500 homes, made contact and interactions with 3,351 survivals, and then had at least 135 of those conduct some form of registration. In financial assistance awarded to individuals, we have over $2.2 million. The next thing I would like to highlight is the Community Development Block Grant, the subrecipients applications for that. We have received over 10. The scoring will be conducted this year by the department staff, and then their recommendations will be presented to the mayor in mid-February with the final confirmation at the March committee meeting. Our next Community Neighborhood Services Committee meeting will be on the 12th of February at 4:30 in the City Hall Conference Room. This concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Chairperson Shekina. Have any questions about that? Seeing none, we're ready for Parks and Recreation Committee. Chairperson Zacharias, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Due to the cold temperatures lately, the Maintenance Division of Parks and Rec has been focused on some indoor projects, including the painting, including painting at McGregor Park and the renovation of the concession stands at Heritage Park. The aquatics team met with representatives from city and county fire departments and EMS on January 19th to discuss Parks and Rec's new career initiative program. This program is designed to increase employee retention, assist with recruitment, and offer a future career path for lifeguards. Family formal tickets are available for purchase. The entire family is invited to join in the fun. Excuse me. On Saturday, April 13th at the Wilma Rudolph Event Center. Admission is $20 for every guest and includes a meal with a kid-approved menu, dancing, and fun activities. This year's theme is Ice Cream Dream. Registration for our first ever Greenway 8K opened today. We are excited to incorporate this new running experience into our schedule as requested by the public. Exciting running. Okay. Yeah, whew, those days are long gone for me. All right. But I will go watch and cheer people on. The race will start inside Heritage Park, continue on the Greenway, loop at Pollard Road Trailhead, and then return on the Greenway before concluding at Heritage Park. If you are interested in joining the Parks and Rec team, we are looking for a grounds and facilities maintenance assistant and a grounds and facilities crew chief. You can find information about those positions, as well as a complete list of programs, classes, and ongoing activities at clarksvilleparksrec.com. And that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. Any comment or question regarding this committee report? Seeing none, we're ready for Public Safety Committee. Chairperson Redd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. Our committee that was taken up in Finance, Resolution 35. We discussed that and it passed unanimous to retire Arlo, and he will go to the police officer, Mr. Andrew Trescott, and we just pray that he enjoys his retirement with Arlo. And we have a report of property crimes. I'm just going to lump all these together if it's without objection. Burglary, vehicle theft, and assault was equal 1,443. And building and codes, the current month revenue was $264,949 that will go toward the kitty. The previous month was higher, $295,042. That gives us a variation of $30,093. Parks and Recreation Building and Codes had received 174 complaints. They did not have any self-initiated complaints, so the total cases worked was 174. They had 388 inspections. In the Clarksville Fire Department, the Fire Suppression Division had total calls of 1,679. 70% of the calls were rescue and medical calls. There were 9 structural fires in December with an estimated $337,250 worth of damage. The Clarksville Fire and Rescue celebrated 100% certification of all its positions and that shows the professionalism in the Clarksville Fire and Rescue. We have 12 new hires, cross your fingers, undergoing the pre-employment testing, and of course that'll bring us pretty much up to snuff there. Another reminder, as the last council meeting, please be sure to check your smoke alarms and your carbon monoxide detector. It's still cold weather, but even in good weather, but in cold weather especially, people might want to get a kerosene heater or gas thing, and there's absolutely no reason to die of gas poisoning, carbon monoxide poisoning, which is a silent killer. If you don't have the smoke alarm, I know I got one in my travel trailer because we have gas in there. Please make sure, if you don't have a smoke alarm or a carbon monoxide detector, contact us at the Clarksville Fire and Rescue. We'll give you one for free if you need one. And that concludes my report.
Okay, good report. Any comment or question? Seeing none, we're ready for Transportation, Streets, and Garage Committee. Chairperson Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The TSG reports for January 2024 are as follows. Ridership for CTS totaled 39,279 riders. Fixed routes was 35,741 riders. Senior fixed routes was 6,192. Paratransit routes was 3,538 riders. CTS selected a person of the month. One of the bus operators was Mr. Brandon E. Seek. We say congratulations to Mr. Brandon E. Seek for him being selected as the operator of the month. That concludes that report. We now move on to the street department. And the street department work orders completed in January was 221. Street department continues to pick up storm debris. Work will begin on Dunlop and Ted Crozier Boulevard intersection to add additional turning lanes soon. It's the work will begin on Fire Station Road to widen to 3 lanes and to add a sidewalk. Okay, that concludes the report on the street department. Now, the city garage. The total number of city work orders are 469 for the month of January. And we skip on down to the fuel costs by the city garage for on-site fuel pumps. Unleaded total cost was $75,773.06. That was for the month of January. And diesel cost was $20,114. Fuel cost for unleaded was $2.45 per gallon, and that last delivery was January. And the increase of this was 2.9%, which was $2.38. Fuel cost for diesel was $2.50 per gallon, and that was also last delivered in January. A decrease of 4.9% from $2.63. This concludes my reports.
Thank you. Any comment or question regarding this committee report? Seeing none, any member of council have a comment? Councilperson Streetman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to wish a very happy birthday to the council person for Ward 12. I think, yeah, it's still tomorrow that your birthday. So I hope you have a great one. And I think you might have a birthday coming up too, since I saw you had cupcakes, but I didn't know about yours, so I apologize.
February 10th.
His 10th birthday?
Say that one more time for the
On the
record.
10th.
All right, and you'll be how old?
48 and a half.
All right.
I heard that.
65. Councilperson Zacharias?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to let everybody know that the Habitat for Humanity Restore is providing vouchers to replace home goods, furniture, or other items lost in the Clarksville tornado. To qualify for a voucher, you must live in the disaster area. These vouchers are being distributed through the Irene Center for Hope. That number is 931-591-8610. And also on that note, Habitat for Humanity of Montgomery County, their 0% interest low-income home ownership program is now accepting applications for families interested in partnering with them for safe, affordable housing. Applicants must meet financial housing and partnership requirements to be considered for the program, and you can apply online.
Thank you. Councilperson Holloman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to talk about a pretty serious subject. It's the upcoming storm that I've always talked about for like the past, I don't know how long, but Clarksville's about to go through some pretty hard times, and it's going to be, economic, it might be social turmoil. We have to prepare ourselves. We have to prepare our minds, our bodies, and our souls. And the way to do that is we have to admit when we are wrong, and we have to work on improving ourselves. Like, for example, I used to have a problem with alcohol. And, you can actually improve, believe it or not. It is possible to improve, and that's what it is. What I would recommend is, for me, and at least my experience, I would probably be dead if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm very, very grateful to them. And so if anyone's struggling with drugs, alcohol, it's not the end of the road. Like, you can get better and you can improve your lives. You can become a better person. And so with that, we have to become a better person, and we have to improve ourselves, and we have to unify, because there is a lot of just watch the news. I'm not going to get into it, but it's going to come a time when all of Clarksville is going to have to unify, and so I've been working on a plan for that. I call it Clarksville Mutual Protectors, and all it is it's just a pledge, just saying if there's like a existential threat, that we're gonna all come together and as Clarksvillians, and we're gonna tough it all out together. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna end it with just reading the pledge, and that'll be it. Okay. So it's just for me, I'm just gonna put my name in it. So it says, I, Travis Holloman, solemnly pledge my support to the safety of Clarksville and her citizens. I understand and agree that the current national and international events are causing distrust, fear, and instability for the American people. I agree knowingly that I may be called upon in service in the way of my own personal time to help keep our beautiful city safe and secure from any destructive outside forces. I understand that this is a last resort solution in the event that there is an existential threat against our city, family, and neighbors. In the event Clarksville's police forces are stretched thin in dealing with a crisis, I agree to assist by giving my personal time. I understand the world is progressively getting worse, and I will be called upon only in a time of extreme circumstances. I hope and pray that time may never come. I acknowledge the need for unity in a time of division. I understand that this document is not legally binding, and I will not be legally held to any obligation. I signed the pledge based on my own personal honor to protect those that I love. I agree to the pledge wholeheartedly, and of my own free will and accord. May we all live in peace, prosperity, and happiness. And that's all I have. I can do everything through Jesus Christ. Thank you.
Councilperson Lovato.
Thank you, Mayor. Quickly, I would just like to give a shout out and wish my good friend a happy birthday, Fireman Matt. When he is not fighting fires, he is watching our city council meeting. So I hope you have another great year.
All right, Matt. You heard it here first. Councilperson Allen.
So first, I'd just like to say thank you, Councilperson Holloman, for your transparency. That took a lot. I'd like to also say this is the kickoff for today is the first day of Black History Month. Make sure you get out there and go to some events during this month. There's a lot of events happening. If you look on Black Clarksville, all the events are out there. Make sure you go see something and make sure you learn something about our culture. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilperson Red.
Oh, thank you, man. I'd just like to, meant to before, but just wanted to thank the council lady from Ward 2 for the cupcakes. And before you leave, be sure to get one from me, okay? Because the price went down on them. So Helga won't let me bring them home.
And that concludes his report and our business. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Without objection, we are adjourned.